Welcome, UCI students. We are the WalkAway campaign. We are the movement of former Democrats walking away from the Democratic Party. We're here today to engage, answer questions, have conversations with any of you. So if any of you would like to find out all the reasons why we used to affiliate with the political left, we are former liberals, former Democrats walking away from the Democratic Party. We would love to have a conversation with any of you, answer any of your questions. Today, we're covering all sorts of topics like, do Black lives really matter? Why is the political left behind transitioning minors and children? What else do we have out there? Yeah, we want to discuss black privilege and the controversial notion that it's okay to be white. Not to mention, we'd love to hear how you feel about the election of President Trump. America's rejection of President Biden and the Democrats' policies. We would love to talk with you about any of these topics and so much more. Immigration, tariffs, economy, whatever's on your mind. Please come on over. We'd love to talk with all of you guys. Again, we are the WalkAway campaign. We are the largest national movement of former liberals and former Democrats who are walking away from the Democratic Party and walking away from the political left. No, so we're a social political movement. I mean, we do have social media channels and stuff, but we travel around the country talking to sometimes college kids, sometimes the black community, Hispanic community. We do a lot of minority-focused events. We do a lot of marches, rallies, debates, and things like that. But basically, the basis of what we do is that we all at one time affiliated with the Democratic Party and the political left. We have come to see and believe that those beliefs are erroneous and I'd say destructive to our culture and our country. We want to encourage as many people as possible to think for themselves and also take a good hard look at what they're believing and what they're being taught and I think indoctrinated in a lot of America's college campuses and challenge those beliefs that a lot of people have. And so I think it's a good opportunity to come out and engage and have a conversation and answer questions and things like that. I mean, do you feel as a young person, do you feel like your college campus, you go to school here? Oh, yeah. Do you feel like the ideology on the campus is very liberal? Do you have a political affiliation of your own?
I don't feel comfortable.
You don't?
But why is that?
Right.
That you don't feel comfortable?
Can you approach the mic just so we can record your sound? Just to talk just for a minute.
I think I'm good, to be honest.
Come on over. Yeah, we'd love to talk to you.
What's up? Is this like an elaborate rage bait? What is this?
Well, it's not an elaborate rage bait, but a lot of these signs, and we have others as well, are representative, I think, of different left-wing ideological talking points or beliefs. And so I think all of us here are former liberals, and I think at one point in our lives or another, we probably felt and believed and represented the more left-wing ideological belief. We don't anymore. And so we want to sort of challenge and those ideas and have conversations about it.
Why do you think that you being a liberal matters at all?
I think it's a lot of people's experience. It's a lot of people's experience who started on the left and tens of millions have moved away for it, voted for Trump. So I think we're just speaking to an experience that many Americans are having.
I mean, this just feels like, I don't know. I can't really tell if you guys are being serious.
Which part do you feel is unserious?
Well, stop transing kids is just like.
Which part of that do you take issue with?
Transing kids.
What's the issue?
Like, what does the statement mean is the issue? It's like
that it is
I lack the ability
improper,
to
immoral to transition minors. Do you disagree with that statement?
Are you talking about like voluntary transition on the child's part? Or are you talking about
what do you mean voluntary?
Like if a child wants something.
If a child wants something, if a child wants a pony, do you give it to them? If a child wants to shoot heroin, what's that?
If you can afford to buy them a pony.
If you can afford to cut a child's breasts off, that's fine. If you can afford to sterilize a child, is money what it's about?
Is castrating children the same as buying them a pony?
I would say no. You're saying if a child wants it and you can afford it, great.
I mean, you just asked me the question. No, the situation you implied is if you can buy a child a pony, should you buy them a pony? Yeah, if you can afford it, sure. Why not buy something that makes your child happy? But what does that have to do with?
And you think castrating children will make them happy?
I mean, it's already normalized in America to.
But so what we're saying is that is the problem.
So you don't think that kids should be circumcised?
No, I don't. But I don't think people want to talk about that.
I mean,
Circumcised.
I know. I agree. I agree. They shouldn't be.
yeah.
I'm totally with you on that. But that's not what we're referring to.
But circumcision is not transitioning.
Well, yeah, of course it's not. Two different things are different things. Yes, I'm glad you can make that distinction. But who is forcing kids to be transitioned?
So, okay, it's a great question. So, one of, and I'm sure you have some stuff to say as well. One of the key issues, I think, is that there are a lot of kids, 12, 13, 14 years old, who are having an experience where they're feeling like they don't fit in, or there's something about themselves they're uncomfortable with.
Gender dysmorphia, identity dysphoria.
Gender dysphoria. Well, but let's not even go that far yet, because I actually think that a lot of kids are being convinced that they have gender dysphoria who don't even have gender dysphoria, and they're being told that the solution to their problem is to medically transition. And once you start taking puberty blockers and hormones and chemical castration, things like that, a lot of these things are irreversible. Of course, the left is lying about that and saying that they are reversible, but they're not.
Who is the left?
The political left.
Who is the political left? You're
That's anybody who
to an
identifies as the
idea.
political left.
So you're generalizing to an idea of a person that does not exist.
No, I mean, you can't. I'm sorry, but you can't pretend like this is a nonpartisan issue. There's nobody on the right who's pushing for
I'm
this.
not saying this is even a political issue. I'm just saying.
But it is.
This left.
But it actually is.
No, I'm just asking, who is the left in your definition? You have to have an example of a body or an individual in order to create an argument. Otherwise, you're just getting into semantic debates with nobody.
But I feel like that's like asking who are Republicans or who are Democrats. Like, I can't sit here and name for you every person, but we all know that people align politically on one side or another.
So you answered your own debate. You said, well, we can't answer who a Republican is, and you can't answer who.
I think the question of who the left is a little bit ethereal, but let's focus on the trans thing, because I think that's more interesting.
Okay.
I don't think it's interesting to focus on who the left is.
You're trying to have a conversation about a sweeping generalization on people's political and personal experiences, and
Of course you can.
Ways that they express.
I just want to finish the one thing, and then I'll get back to it.
But you refuse to hearken or whatever word, or narrow down unto a specific group of people that are.
I just want to finish the point I was making really quick, which is that a lot of young people are being convinced that they're transgender who are not actually transgender. And once you start giving them permanent and irreversible medical treatments, you're not only creating a lifelong patient, but you're actually destroying the lives of a lot of people who are actually not transgender.
So do you think it's within your realm of cognizance to tell somebody that they're ruining their lives?
I think that
I could tell you right now, you're ruining your life by wasting all of these intelligent university students with this just dog shit, but I don't. I'm not telling you you're ruining your life.
I would just point out that we're not doing irreversible damage to our own bodies or anyone else's. So that it's not really a fair comparison.
You're perpetuating a lot of narratives right now. You're committing microaggressions like crazy. Sure, that's a liberal thing, but that's a real thing. You are being very confrontational with the way you were phrasing your conversation to elicit a reaction, like he just did. He laughed. That elicited a reaction.
If it's a microaggression,
and then you post
shouldn't
that
it just make you
online
micro-angry?
to engage with people. So yes, you guys are not doing it. You guys are not getting up here and yelling homophobic epithets or any of this, but you are doing the same exact thing in a less toned down way so that you can put me in a position where I feel rage baited or I feel like I'm losing a debate or something. When I'm not. I'm just trying to have a conversation of what you guys mean. Who is transing kids?
Okay, so here's my question, because you asked who is the left in a generalized thing. Okay, so you made a statement about how we are making the implication that children who undergo these surgeries, who are we to tell them that it's bad? So on the reverse, where are you getting your information from to say that it's good, to imply that it's good? Is there a scientific
I'm not
institution?
implying that it is good. I am implying that transgender people have existed for thousands of years.
Okay, but that's
They're-
not the question I was asking, though.
Yeah.
So let's break
Because
it down.
that's not what I said. I never said
Transing kids. So you take issue with the sign.
Yes.
Okay,
Because
so-
you're phrasing it in a way that is making it seem like it's some sort of new phenomenon.
Okay.
Transgenderism and transgender
That's besides the
dysphoria
point.
is not.
You take
What do
issue with
mean?
you take issue with the sign. So where's your justification that transing the kids is actually a good thing?
Who is transing the kids?
What do you mean who? What do you mean who? Parents?
Stop transing the kids. That's like an incomplete sentence, but
Okay.
it's predicated on stopping
Okay.
something from
Are there
happening.
not child sex changes that are taking place?
I'm sure there are.
There are. So I don't understand what
But
the
who is
confusion
transing
is.
them?
What do you mean Is this a troll?
Am I trolling? You have "Stop Transing the Kids" on a poster on a college campus, and you refuse to make a claim about a single individual, party, or entity that is
There are
creating this transition.
There are
The
doctors, Democratic Party. That's
How do
literally
they
their
do it?
main platform is this idea
I would
of
be
like,
fascinated to know how the Democratic Party is complicit with the forced transition of children.
oh my goodness.
Can I say one quick thing?
You gave me the
Well, so-
answer. I'm asking you to follow up on and expand on your answer.
First of all,
is
I'm
that
very
unfair?
sorry to microaggress you. I did not mean to make you microaggressed. However, thank you. I think you're doing something very common that we see often is that you're trying to play these very esoteric word games and who's doing the surgery and what's the leftist stuff. And that is a sleight of hand trick because the position of transitioning minors is indefensible. And I think that deep down you know it. I think that deep down most people know that. They've just been conditioned to not speak up about things they see that are wrong.
So do you think in these great United States of America, the bastion of democracy and freedom of expression, do you think that we as Americans should tell another American that they're doing something inherently wrong by simply existing? Or does that...
As you're doing right now by taking issue with our signs?
Yeah, I'm taking issue because they're worded very poorly.
Okay, so why is it that when we're
Stop
doing it,
Transing Kids
it's
is just a
perpetuating
statement.
irreversible
I'm
damage,
asking
but when
you-
you do it,
to please specify who is transing kids. So far, we've gotten the response, the Democratic Party. Democratic Party is a political organization. It's
What
not
is-
a person or it's an organization. It's an amalgamation of people. It is not a singular individual.
Who are in support of this issue.
I would just be curious to know what does it mean to be a minor, distinct from
Oh, okay.
being. Well,
Yeah,
why do we recognize people under the age of 18 as minors?
Yeah,
and the rest?
I agree. That's a good point. There's a lot of your brain is still developing into your early 20s. So
Yeah.
I would say that, the structure that we have now is exploitative of young people. So I would
Yeah.
agree with your position that who is a minor and what is a minor. I think you're getting into another semantics debate, as your kind cohort just said. Who is transing these kids?
Well, I would say that if we agree that we have minors for a reason, that we make that distinction under the age of 18, then minors can't be making this decision. So even if a child under the
Who
age of
is
18,
transing the kids?
then it would be the doctors,
The doctors.
parents.
Do you know
Even
how
if
long
a
it
child
takes
says
to
this
become a
is
doctor?
what yes, but children cannot make this decision. So when we talk about transing children at all,
Do you,
it's
do
all
you have
forced.
any idea how much training you need to become a certified
Sure,
doctor?
I think we all understand that doctors
Would you mind explaining
need to go
me,
to school for very
Yeah,
long.
yeah,
What does that have to do
Would
with?
you mind explaining to me the training that doctors have to do in order to even put themselves in rooms to have these conversations with individual patients? Would you care sharing your understanding of the amount of
Oh yeah,
education
my
you have?
understanding is that most of the Western world has paused puberty blockers for children.
That's not the
has
question.
put the kibosh on this
That
for
is again not the
no,
question.
but why if we are having this disagreement here,
I'm
even in the
asking
West,
you to expand. I'm not disagreeing with you yet. I'm asking you to expand on your position.
doctors go to school for a very long time. Yes,
Yeah, but we
understand
need
that.
to come together to understand the gravitas of that education.
Yeah.
Do you understand that there have been medical abuses in the past, lobotomies,
Yes,
such
the
like that
Tuskegee
of the
Air
day?
experience, the
Yeah,
AIDS
COVID.
epidemic. Yeah.
So is it possible that
Eugenics.
just like Sweden and Denmark has paused puberty blockers, is it possible that we might be wrong here in America and that maybe we should slow down because children can't make these decisions?
Should you make the decision?
Well, if you saw a child being abused, would you say something to the parent? Would you stop it?
Is
if
that
you
a yes
saw
or no?
What is?
Should you be able to make this decision on if trans kids?
I think we all have a inherent vested interest in the well-being of our children.
Yes or no?
Should I be able to make the decision for an individual child if I'm not their parent? No.
Okay. Should I?
This shouldn't be
able to make the
happening.
decisions?
Wait, we do not let minors get tattoos. We do not let minors.
Okay.
We
yeah.
don't let.
Yeah.
So we have things that even if your child wants to do it, even if you want to do it for your child,
Yeah.
we stop that. So I would argue, I think we would all argue that when we talk about puberty blockers or castration, that would fall into that group.
So you said that you are not qualified to make a decision. I asked whether or not I am qualified.
I think
to
we're
make a
all
decision.
qualified to have an understanding of objective truth and reality.
I think you're taking away the component of right and
So we
wrong.
agree that neither of us is qualified to make a decision about another individual's existence, right?
60-year-old.
That would be infringing on their freedoms, right? Like infringing on their rights.
Can a 60-year-old marry a 10-year-old?
Am I microaggressing you? Is that why you guys are?
No, I'm
answering my
macro-aggressed. Can a 60-year-old,
Can I
because
please
you're
have an
saying
answer?
you're not qualified to look at anything as objective truth or being right and wrong, so can a 60-year-old marry a 10-year-old?
So can I have an answer before you guys?
I'm asking you. I'm waiting for an answer. Because
I
then,
said no. She said no.
But according to you, who are you to decide for
I'm not.
someone else? So then why wouldn't that be okay?
Why would not? Why would me?
Why would it not be
being
okay for a 60-year-old to marry a 10-year-old?
That has nothing to do with trans.
It absolutely does. Consent is the issue.
60-year-old?
Children cannot consent.
So what does marrying? Why do you bring pedophilia into the question?
Because
This
it's
is
very
a
related.
This is a medical procedure. This is a medical
Because that
treatment.
is
What
the
does pedophilia
inevitable
have to do with
slippery
anything?
slope of implying that a child has
You are making this a
has
slippery
the
slope.
mental capacity and maturity to say that they can socially or medically transition.
You realize, as a
that's where
collective,
it goes to. When you
that
have
you
no
brought it to this
standards,
point.
no standards become the standard. And it
You
doesn't
brought
seem like you
pedophilia
understand
into
that.
this. You brought pedophilia. I did not bring pedophilia into this. I am simply asking, who is transing the kids? Your cohort.
Doctors,
Establish that,
teachers,
doctors.
leaders, lawmakers.
You have established that your position is that Democrats are forcibly or coercing or compelling or implying, inferring that kids should transition. I have come to you with a history of human civilization that transgender people and transgender
Not people,
identity
children. We're talking about children. There has never happened in human history.
has existed since antiquity, since
Yes,
before
people
languages
who
were
have
even
struggled
written
with
down.
their identity
That
have
is a very
existed since the
documented
beginning
thing.
of time. I'm not going to disagree with you on
Transgender
that.
people exist. They exist.
Again, we're talking about
multiplicatively,
children.
Beyond time, beyond language, beyond culture.
There has
beyond
never
socioeconomic
been a
position.
time in human
So what is-
history where we allowed children to cut off body parts, to sterilize themselves. Do you think it's okay to give a double mastectomy to a 12-year-old?
What does that have?
Yes
to do
or
with-
no?
What does that have?
Yes
to do
or
with
no?
it?
Why can't you answer
You
that?
ask us for answers. I think it's fair for you to answer.
Is it okay to give a double mastectomy to a 12-year-old who says she's trans?
Well, I'm not a doctor, and
Yes or no?
say that a double mastectomy is a conversation that should be had between the doctor and the
For a 12-year-old.
between a doctor and their patient, a well-informed individual who has spent their life studying their craft, studying the ethics of medicine.
And it was people who studied the ethics of medicine that did eugenics, that did lobotomies, that did all
Yeah.
sorts of things in the past.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how your argument that just because somebody has a medical degree means that they're infallible.
I think it means that they're equipped to handle the conversation more than I am.
See, okay, I have an objection to that though as well, because you kind of keep coming back to this, like the medical training. I don't think that there's anybody who says that we have a medical understanding of what transgenderism actually is. There's no scientific root cause. It can't be observed under a microscope. And this is not something that people go to medical school and they come out of medical school and they say, I now understand what transgenderism is and exactly how to treat it. That's not true.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so then I think that we should stop putting so much focus on the medical training and this idea that just because somebody goes to medical school, they're now qualified to tell a 12-year-old that they need a double mastectomy. I don't think that's true at all.
I would be.
I would actually
very-
question the ethics of any doctor, somebody who went to medical
Yeah,
school
of
who
course.
said that they were qualified to make that decision.
Yeah, but I would also go so far as how often are doctors trying to compel children to undergo double mastectomies when I think at that stage of development you aren't fully developed
If
yet.
this is
So-
such a rare
Exactly, that's the
problem,
point.
why is it? I mean, and I want to bring it back to your question about like who's fighting for this. I mean, the Trump administration.
That was not my question. Please
well,
do
but
not-
the Trump administration has put policies forward.
What's
By
it say?
engaging, you are feeding their content. Walk away and stop giving them a platform. See, there's like this big thing that like by engaging with people who are kind of just trying to deteriorate our great
Can you read what the note
democracy,
says?
I'm complicit in the deterioration of our democracy.
Hold on, I actually.
What?
No, that is a
Good point. I do agree with you. You're having a discussion with us, and you're not. We already have a platform. We're here. We're going to be here for a few hours. We're going to have it on video. So I think that you're actually doing a good thing here by having a discussion. I would say we're all qualified to have this discussion because we kind of did agree here that we don't totally know what transgenderism is, and we don't totally know how best to treat it, and we don't
So
totally know.
You shouldn't make any statements about it if you don't know what you're talking
Well,
about.
I think you already said that these signs are to spark a conversation, which is actually what happened here.
There's a white young lady over here who seems very upset by the sign that says it's okay to be white. Do you want? I'd love to talk to you about it. I heard you just say that.
One of these days.
I'm
I'll
not.
answer a
But
question
you
directly.
just said a second ago you were
she
upset
won't.
by the sign that said it's okay to be white.
I mean.
Oh,
this is
okay.
like
I
part and
think we
parcel for,
got you
like,
on video reacting to
the
it.
conservative narrative. They'll just like ask more questions when you're confronted with a question to like switch the conversation. I asked who's transing the kid.
How many answers would you like to that? Teachers, doctors, lawmakers.
60-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Yes, that's what I was about to say a second ago when you got past the note. No, I'm going to answer you. So the Trump administration now, and the second administration has come in and begun to put forward executive orders trying to stop the medical transitioning of kids. And all of these actions are being fought by the Democrats. They're not being fought by Republicans. So Democrats are, in fact, fighting for the ability to transition kids. It is a partisan issue. There are no Republicans who are supporting this. So hopefully that answers that question.
It doesn't.
How?
Who is transing the kid?
How many answers do you want to that?
Okay. Do you agree that?
You gave me a lot
do
of
you
like
do you agree
ambiguous,
that
like,
trans kids
identities.
exist?
You're like
Do you-
Big Brother is
Stick with me.
transitioning the kids.
Stick
like
with me.
you said the Democratic Party.
Okay, but
the Democratic Party is an amalgam.
I said teachers, doctors, lawmakers.
I said if you asked me the question, who is transing the kids, and I said, well, the inteligencia is transitioning the kids. Is that a direct answer? or is
I'll
that
give you a
just-
good example.
Okay.
And this has
Give
happened
me-
with
get-
many
I would
people.
love to be
I'll give
wrong.
you a great
Please prove me
example.
wrong.
Beyond
Please prove me
obviously
wrong.
the doctors who are just
Please
doing the
prove me wrong.
surgeries and such.
Come on.
Buddy of mine has a daughter,
there's
11
4 of
years
you.
old.
4 on
Daughter's
one,
in
let's go.
school, like any 11-year-old girl. She's
This is basketball.
I'm
Like,
speaking.
let's go. Come on. 4 on
I'm
one.
a pull at Kamala Harris. I'm speaking.
4 on 1. Let's go.
Black woman is speaking now. Thank
4
you.
on 1. Let's go.
Do we agree that trans kids exist? Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So clearly someone is trans. We don't know who it is.
Okay.
But
come on.
clearly.
You got 4 of you. Come on.
Now-
You can get to it. Come on.
Now, is it morally right
Okay.
to trans a child if that child says, I
Yeah.
feel like I am this gender or that gender? Is it morally right or is it morally wrong to deny that?
So there's 4 of you, and what you guys have come together to
No,
ask is
hold on.
a question
I'm asking
on
you.
morality.
I'm trying to keep it very simple. Trying to keep it very simple.
vague
I
and
don't
great
want to. I don't
question.
want to move the goalposts. That's where this conversation has
never
been going.
accused you of
Let's
anything.
reel it back in.
Yeah.
So you
You're
agree that
asking me a
trans kids
question on
exist?
morality.
All right. So because you take issue with the sign, I don't know why. I can't figure it out. So
Because it's not like declaratory of anything. It's stop transing kids. Who
right.
is
Well, you just said
forcibly
that
transing
kids are being trans.
No, I said trans kids exist. There's a difference
Okay.
between trans kids existing and
So you don't think-
kids
you don't
being
believe-
transitioned.
You don't believe that
There's a
kids are being
distinction.
medically transitioned?
Well,
Have you not
I never
seen
said that
them?
they
Okay.
don't or aren't.
Okay,
I
so
am
they are.
saying
They
that
exist.
trans kids exist.
Okay.
But kids are not being forced to be trans. I am trying to like come to whether or not there's like a codified
That
example.
does happen too, but they're also being, I hate using this term, but they're being groomed in school.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and through the media.
Okay, yeah.
And then
yeah.
eventually they get to a spot where they're talking with a doctor, and that doctor, if unfortunately that doctor is incentivized and has a political leaning, will say, okay, you know what, double mastectomy might actually fix this problem. So it's not like an overnight thing, but it is happening, and I think we've agreed that there is such a thing as trans kids.
Okay, so I would first like to say that morality is like a philosophical construct.
Okay, I think
bring,
you're
like,
trivializing the question.
No, I'm answering your question in totality, if you'd let me finish it.
Sure.
Morality is a philosophical construct. You cannot bring a scientific debate predicated on morality. That's a gray area. That is an ambiguous question. For something that is morally reprehensible to me may seem very morally righteous to you.
Do you believe
That's why
there's
it's a
absolute
philosophical
morality?
Construct. I mean, that's another philosophical question. But we're talking about biology. We're talking about individual rights, not philosophy.
We're talking about biology. I mean, if we're really talking about biology, there would be no such thing as transing the kids. But you're asking.
How does that mean anything?
If biology was pretty, black and white, there would be no transing the kids. He's confused, and he's confusing me.
I'll give you a good example. This is happening all over the place. It happened to multiple friends of mine that they have young daughters, 10, 11 years old, struggling with themselves like any young girl does, and then a teacher gets their hooks in them, and they say, hey, maybe you're a boy. And the school then changes their identity, changes their name to a male name, keeps it as a secret from the parents, which in this state you're allowed to do. So when you ask who is transitioning the kids, it is a process, it is a pipeline these kids are being put into. So does that answer your question?
Methinks thou doth protest too much.
Yes, I'm a beautiful trans woman.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
There is. And I'm blazing, baby.
It's okay to feel gender dysphoria.
It is okay to feel gender dysphoria, but
You can say you feel dysmorphic in your body at times. There's nothing wrong with that.
right. But can I
I
ask you a
mean,
question?
there's truth in every joke.
Do we agree that we have people who regret the things that they do, people who desist or detransition? Does that exist?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do we do about those people? Do we just say,
try to support them.
oh, well, the doctor went to medical school for a very, very long time?
Yeah, you made the best decision with the best educated individuals at the time, and you changed your mind.
But these are children who now
You deserve our support.
Hold on. We all agree that they deserve our support, but this was avoidable. These are children who are sterilized now. They don't even know what it means to want a child, and now they can never have a child. These things are happening before they're 18 years old, and we agree that there are a lot of desisters and detransitioners. So that goes back to my earlier point about why Denmark and Sweden has paused these things, because what do we do about the fair number of people who do regret this?
Yeah, sure. There's 4 of them. I doubt they'll be able to beat you, but good luck.
No, like
Good
one
luck.
second.
Thank you for talking to us.
Yeah, thank you.
I just kind of had a point because you guys talk about like stop transing the kids, and then you're talking a lot about like specifically medical transitions and the regret with like medical transitions and how that's a big issue. But only about 1% of people who undergo like transition surgery or like medically transitioning actually come to regret those surgeries, whereas other surgeries have much higher regret rates, like LASIK or like knee replacement, hip replacement, right? So are we saying that none of those should ever really happen? In addition to that, stop transing the kids, I think also you said that like teachers are involved in that and things like that, but I think like you're talking a lot about medical transitions, but I think the fact that trans kids exist is like a separate issue than trans kids are like always being forced to medically transition. Like, I think that they can experiment with their identity, as you know, you're kind of like putting this out there, without medically transitioning, and that does happen, and that is fine. That is not irreversible damage to their psyche, to their mind, like to their life, right? That they are allowed to transition or to experiment with their identity in their youth. Like, that's fine. Also, said like trans people always exist, but children are also people who, like, if you're going through the first 18 years of your life and you're like, hey, you can't be trans for the first 18 years of your life because you're gonna medically transition and then you're gonna ruin your life. But then once you turn 18, you can do whatever you want. Like, that's kind of damaging to the psyche of people who are experiencing real gender dysphoria when they're, like 0 to 18 years old, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, that was a lot of questions right there.
Yeah.
But okay, so we have already established that there are children who feel that they are trans, and yet we've also established that we have children, we have minors for a reason. And so, again, I would ask, what do we do about the children who have now done irreversible damage, and it's been more than just messing around with clothing and your identity and how you choose to self-identify? What do we do? And even if you say, well, first of all, we don't have the data on it yet because this is relatively new. And I'm not saying that transgenderism is new, but I'm saying that prior to 2015, there was no medical literature at all of any natal females being trans or having gender dysphoria. Historically, it was 0.0.
Why are we talking only about females? What about the males?
Because historically, gender identity disorder was 0.01% of the population, and it was exclusively people born male.
Do you
and they
think
were
that
they were oftentimes very young boys, and by the time they reached adulthood, 70% of them usually course corrected naturally. Within the last 10 years, all across the Western world, transgenderism, specifically among natal females, has exploded by over 4,000%. So clearly we do have something going on. And I would say to you, first of all, we don't have the data on who regrets it and who doesn't, because this is new. But wouldn't you agree that even a small portion, 0.01%, like you said, wouldn't that be too much regret when we're talking about children who should have been protected?
I mean, I would say the same thing. Should we never get anybody get LASIK surgery or a hip replacement or do anything of their own volition to their bodies or get piercings or do...
Children don't do those things.
Right, children don't do those things,
Right.
but like I'm saying that this is like, you're putting it at that same level. If,
But we're
if
talking
50%
about
of
children.
people...
We're
talking about children.
We're talking about children.
Sure.
And I would agree with you that 18 is like a little bit arbitrary because our brains don't stop developing until, what, 25? We have to make the cutoff somewhere, and currently, right now, it is 0 to 18. And so if you can't do these other things, why are you allowed to do this? Why are you allowed to do more than just dress how you want? I don't care if a child dresses how he wants to dress.
I mean, maybe if you guys don't have the experience, because I'm assuming, I don't know, maybe none of you guys are trans, right? Maybe you don't understand the trans experience, or maybe even the impacts of gender dysphoria and all of these other things. But these are highly damaging things that can really affect the mental health of these children, right? You're saying these children are experiencing like high levels of gender dysphoria and like suicidal thoughts and depression and anxiety and not being able to be comfortable with yourself and with your body. And that is extremely damaging to their mental health. So then the question becomes, would you rather have a child struggle with their mental health for years, be put in a damaging situation, and trauma has really real consequences for the health of a child once they reach adulthood? Or would you rather, like, I don't know, maybe let them have this surgery if it allows? By the way, these surgeries are not happening at such a rate that, like, you guys, they are not happening at a rate. Okay. These
Can I answer the
surgeries-
question, though, that the first one that you asked?
Sure.
Because this is what I was about to say anyway, so I appreciate that you kind of set it up, because you said, I don't know if you guys understand what the trans experience is like. So you've got two gay men here, me and him, and, when I was a kid, I did have gender dysphoria, and the reason why I had gender dysphoria, and I think the reason why so many gay people have gender dysphoria as children, is because when you're a child, you don't have the mental maturity to understand sexuality, but you do have the basic mental acuity to understand gender. So I think as a child, you can confuse that if you like things and you're a boy, that little girls are supposed to like, rather than think, oh, I'm probably going to grow up to be gay, the most your mind is able to understand at that age is, oh, maybe I'm supposed to be a girl because I like things that little girls like. And that's what I used to think when I was 5 or 6 years old. Thankfully, I grew up in a much different time a long time ago. But if I were a 5 or 6 year old today, that was the same 5 or 6 year old that I was when I was growing up, people would probably be telling me that I'm transgender. And they would probably be encouraging me to eventually make life-altering decisions about my health that I can never take back once I reach the age of maturity to understand I'm not transgender, I'm actually just a gay person. And that's the path I'm meant to take. But guess what? Now I don't have a penis anymore. Or now my body can't ever develop normally because I was given puberty blockers. And I can never become a gay man, the gay man I was supposed to become, because now I'm a permanently altered person.
Sorry, I think we're missing a really big key point here, which is that being transgender does not mean that you have to medically transition, and being transgender looks different for every individual. So if you're saying like who are these, maybe I'll go back to his other point, but like who are these people that are forcing a medical transition? Because first you go through this entire, if you even want to get to a medical transition, right, after you've discovered that you're trans, right, that you are diagnosed with gender dysphoria and all of these other things, right? Nowhere in the step of being transgender or like exploring your gender has to do with medically transitioning, because it is, again, like gender is a social construct. We can identify however. Everything's a social construct. We can identify however we choose to identify, right? And none of that has to do with I'm going to have a medical transition.
Yeah. I'm going to give it to you right now, but you did make 3 different points. But I do want to say, we're not sitting here saying, first of all, some people are forcing kids to transition, but that's not even what we're here saying today. We're saying that it shouldn't be available. It shouldn't be a choice that could be made by parents or doctors or anyone else, because it's simply not appropriate for kids. But we're not sitting here today saying that that's not our issue, saying that this is a forced thing. But here, go ahead.
Okay, so if transgenderism looks different to everyone, you can do socially, you can do medically.
Right.
Earlier, you mentioned the scenario of if your child was struggling with their identity, why wouldn't you want them to be trans?
If that is what being transgender looks like for them. Right? Let's say they're going through however many years, they're like 16, 17, right, whatever, and they've struggled, and the medical transition is the last part to them feeling comfortable with themselves, and I guess not being, depressed, whatever, like.
Okay. So I think that sort of answers the question then, because if there is some coercion going on there where the doctor's basically saying if your child doesn't get this, they're going to die.
Who's coercing? Like, who is sitting here and telling this child you need to medically transition right now? Like who's doing that?
I mean, you just imply that. You're tugging on the heartstrings of people by saying, well, why wouldn't you want this child's mental health to be good? Obviously I do. So if the logical step in that scenario is for them to socially transition, now you're going to come off as someone that doesn't care about your child's mental health. Am I correct?
I guess if you're ignoring your child's needs and their gender dysphoria and not giving them, like therapy and things like that, right? I don't know. So then I guess you're neglecting your child if you don't think that they should be doing better in their mental health because of the gender dysphoria that they experience.
Let me ask you something. Is the goal of transitioning a child so they can feel better happily? Like to make them feel better? Is this...
I mean, framing it to make them feel happier makes it like such an instantaneous, pleasure-driven thing. Mm-hmm. It's about like the entire identity of yourself as a whole. Like that, those are 2 pretty big scales to put things on. Saying that if I transition, then I'm going to be happy. That's like so like, right? Like instant pleasure driven. It's just going to make me happy right now. And you can definitely associate that with being a kid, right? You just want to make a kid happy. That's a very instantaneous pleasure driven decision. But that is not what being transgender is. And that is not what gender identity is.
Okay.
It's about how you present yourself to the world and how you identify yourself and put yourself and your story in the context of everybody else's, which is a really important part to being a person.
Then why is it so important to people to medically transition children who cannot consent? I also wanted to mention there are this is happening all over in schools, that kids are being told this by teachers. Any young child who is struggling in their identity.
A teacher is telling a child to medically transition. Like a teacher is going to tell you need to go cut off your genitals.
In this state for a teacher to change the child's name, for a child to change their name to the opposite gender, change their identity, and to keep it a secret from the parents.
So you're saying that it's predatory. You're saying that it's a slippery slope.
People who are not your child's parent keeping secrets from you about your child is absolutely predatory.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack with that, but let me just start by saying, right, like you're framing this as a very slippery slope, right? Like if I use somebody's preferred name or preferred pronouns, next thing you know, I'm telling them they have to get their genitals cut off, and if I'm an educator in the state of California, or like next thing you know, like they're gonna be cutting their like.
I wanted to go back to what you said. First of all, there are 0 long-term studies on the long-term effects of puberty blockers on children. There is the claim that a very small percentage regret it. It hasn't been studied long enough. That's not true. Here, sorry, go on.
I mean,
We've got a couple people behind you too. Would you mind? I still want to hear from you. Can we give other people a chance and then come back?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah.
Is that okay? We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, my name's Brian. First, I
Hi,
just want to
Brian.
say hi. I really appreciate what you guys do. You know, like, I think conversation's really important, but I feel like there's a certain extent, like you'd agree with me, like there's very polarized political right and political left, right?
Right. Oh, yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
And sometimes people, they do things that don't accurately represent what their whole party believes, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that question in the middle there, like, do Black lives really matter? I feel like somebody could see that sign and that could encourage them to do something like atrocious, like commit a hate crime, go hurt somebody because the color of their skin. How can you justify putting a sign up? Because the answer to that question is really simple, right? Of course, like, yes, Black lives really matter. You'd agree with me on that, right?
Yeah, I never thought we needed the slogan or the signs in the first place.
Well, they're right there. You have a sign that says, do Black lives really matter? That's not a question. I understand it's attention grabbing, but couldn't you agree with me that seeing that sign, somebody who's uneducated, somebody who is a bad actor, they could see that sign and that could go encourage them to go hurt somebody because of the color of their skin?
I think that your question is valid, and I think that you should take it to a number of people in the Black community who seem to have not gotten the message that Black lives matter because they're killing their own community. And this is something that's been going on for a long time. Through 2020, this seemed to be a message that was being pointed squarely at white America, trying to convince us that Black lives matter. I didn't think that white America really needed to be told that, but that was what the focus of the entire message became. But there seemed to be this total ignoring of the fact that the greatest threat to Black lives were Black people.
Where are you getting that from? Like
crime statistics.
Sure, crime statistics. But you'd agree with me.
But the point, I'm answering your question. Like, what is the point of the sign? The point of the sign is to say, if we're supposed to be, white America was supposed to be being taught this lesson in 2020 that Black lives matter. I don't think that we ever thought that they didn't. I think that they do. It just seemed odd that we were being told that by people who were ignoring the fact that the greatest threat to Black lives was never white people.
So that's a narrative that's being pushed by people like you that is harmful, right? Like, you go to an Instagram comment section, you see lots of people saying awful things. You see people every day committing hate crimes and going and hurting Black people and doing bad things because that sign, that pushes them to do things like that.
It's a question.
What was the question?
No, the question is, do Black lives really matter? How is that sign pushing someone to go do something? What is it pushing them to go do?
Because the fact is, Black lives do matter,
yeah,
right?
I think we all agree.
Of course. But you understand that putting that sign there, somebody who's uneducated, somebody who harbors real resentment in their body and themselves, they see that sign as a justification to go hurt somebody. So you shouldn't be putting that there. That question should be changed. It shouldn't be there.
I mean, I hear your criticism. First of all, I think you guys are all educated. Okay, so I don't think we're on a college campus right now. So I don't think
this is getting posted online. It's getting recorded.
Right, but it is a question that is meant, like all our signs, and that one in particular is a question that's meant to spark discussion. I would argue that someone who sees that sign and then decides, I'm going to go do something, I think that person was already going to go do something.
Yeah,
this
you're
is
only
a question.
affirming that person by putting that sign
we're not
there.
affirming anything. It's
Yes,
a question about the way that certain things happen. For me, it's abortion. Black women abort their babies 4 times the rate of white women. So I would just argue, how much do Black lives matter if they don't matter when they're the youngest? But we all here agree that Black lives matter. This is a question that is meant to spark discussion because you can say Black lives matter. Anyone can say Black lives matter. But if we don't actually walk the walk and put our money where our mouth is, like, what does it mean? It's just a Black lives matter. It's meaningless if the Black community is continuing to be harmed. I think we all here agree that we want the best for the Black community. This is not anything other than a question that's meant to spark discussion.
Well, first of all, I don't necessarily agree. By putting that sign, I do not think that you're keeping the Black community and their interest in your hearts, right? Like, I don't want to get into the semantics of statistics, right? You say Black people are committing more crimes against Black people, they're committing more abortions, whatever, right? What that comes down to is socioeconomic status, right, in the history of why they're put in that situation to begin with. Is that right?
Yeah, but you approached it and you said that your concern was that by asking a question like this, it could inspire and prompt somebody to possibly go out and do something to someone else that could be harmful. Is that right?
That's right.
So I think that even if we remove what it says in the specific issue of Black Lives Matter, I think that's an interesting concept to explore in and of itself, because no one seems to care at all when the political left is constantly calling anybody on the right Nazis, bigots, white supremacists, and all of the damage that has done. I promise you, people wearing red MAGA hats are in way more danger than black people are in this country.
Okay, so
I promise you.
All right, Bob.
I mean, they did try to shoot the president after calling him Hitler for so many years.
And how many people get shot just because of the color of their skin? Exactly. So we talk about white on white crime. Talking about
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. You made a statement just.
This.
All right, let's switch it up.
Okay. All right, my name's Issa. My dad is from the Jim Crow South. I'm an older student here. He was born in Tennessee. He is black. So I want to ask you guys, what do you know about being black to make you think that people who maybe...
I know a thing or two.
Okay, you might know a thing or two. Okay. All right, but how does that compare? How can you compare that to people who are living in a mostly homogeneous community wearing red hats and are mostly MAGA? So that doesn't really, you can't really equate that to being like black in the projects.
Okay. So,
I mean, how can you do that?
Are you asking what our experiences are based on our geographical location?
Well, yeah. I mean, you basically made a broad statement that's saying people that are wearing red MAGA hats are more in danger than black people in this country.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make any sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Why? How can you say that when in like the communities that are mostly Caucasian prevalent?
Let's do a social experiment.
Okay.
To answer your question.
Sure.
Let's put a dozen people in MAGA hats and have them walk around on this campus. And then let's take a dozen black people and have them walk around on this campus, and let's see which one ends up. Who gets harassed? Who gets spit on? Who gets attacked?
It's never happened because we actually have a club rush here where we have people who are Trump supporters and no one bothers or spits on them. They get a booth too. You're making assumptions based on. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I completely understand. Okay, listen. I some of the things that I've been hearing, I completely understand, like the asking of, is this going to inspire someone to do something violent? I completely understand that these are thought-provoking questions that are meant to invoke a reaction in us so that we feel as though we can come up here and talk to you guys. I completely understand that. Now, as far as it goes where Trump supporters are more like, or someone wearing a MAGA hat is more likely to be attacked than a black person. So, with that, to me, someone wearing a MAGA hat represents more than someone being attacked for the color of their skin. When you wear a MAGA hat, you are saying you represent a specific person who does not represent you, who is going against you. So wearing the hat and being the color of your skin and being attacked for the difference, and those two things are completely different.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a worldview attached to being black? Because if you're saying that someone getting attacked for wearing a MAGA hat is because of what they represent, so
Yes.
what does being a black person represent? Because you're saying that MAGA doesn't represent you. So what is the black experience? Can you describe it to me?
Well, I know the black experience for me. Now, the difference between what the black experience is for someone who is actually black and what the black experience is perceived to be by the white people who are oppressing us is completely different.
How are white people oppressing you?
Systematically,
What do you mean?
representatively,
Again, what way specifically?
financially, economically, and I mean, it's kind of it's woven into everything that we have as a society. It's too far. It's into Constitution. It's in everything. We are systematically oppressed in every single way in this country.
You specifically, how are you being oppressed by white people right now?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So, there's redlining for one.
Okay.
right? Redlining are mostly black kids and Hispanic kids. The schools they go to aren't that great. They kind of suck, especially in the projects and inner cities.
Sounds like school choice would be a good thing, right?
School choice would be a good thing, but like I said, the Democrats, but the Republicans too, they're not open. They're not open for that anywhere. There's no school choice in Texas or Mississippi.
Okay, well, I want to make a point really quick.
Sure.
I mean, I think I speak for all of us when I would say we would condemn it all. We would condemn being attacked for the color of your skin or attacked for your beliefs, no matter what they are, even if I don't agree with them. All of it is bad. It is all awful. But Brandon, you made the point already that all of these signs are takes on what the left, the Democrats, liberals say. So you made a good point about the fact that when you call someone a Nazi, and someone over here called us Nazis earlier, when you call someone a bigot, when you call someone a fascist, when you call someone racist, if you're saying that just the question, do black lives really matter, hypothetically might cause someone to do a terrible act that I condemn, then maybe everybody, because these signs are takes on what the left say, maybe everyone should stop with the fascist, stop with the racist, stop with the Nazi, stop with all of that. Because you're sitting here telling me, and maybe you have a good point, that just the question, do black lives really matter, is going to cause someone to do a horrible act. So maybe we should all be a little more mindful of our language, because we get this every single day.
I didn't see that myself, but...
No, but you guys all have the point that maybe the sign is,
Not necessarily. Like she just said, we see that you're here to try to provoke a conversation, and that's what we're having, right?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's
We're
good.
not-
But the young lady who was not able to name a single example of how she's systematically oppressed on a daily basis.
That's because she's very young.
Who faces so much oppression that she can't think of a single example.
Well, I can think of an example too.
Made a point. Well, hold on, sir, please.
Sure.
Made a point that I really take offense to, which is that by wearing the MAGA hat, we're proclaiming to the world that we espouse some sort of value system that's degrading to, I'm assuming, racial minorities and a number of other people. First of all, that's an incredibly ignorant position that you took, and I want you to know that it's incredibly offensive. I don't know any MAGA people. Hey, hold on. I don't know any MAGA people who are racist. But let me finish my point. But the bigger point is, if MAGA is so racist, why did Trump just win the 2024 election? Because so many black people came over and voted for Trump. Why are black people abandoning the Democratic Party and coming over to MAGA if it's such a racist movement?
They are, but they aren't. I think people are leaving both parties behind in the same way.
Sorry to grab your arm.
I think a lot of people here are just kind of disenfranchised with both, and to say that maybe one thing's better than the other is very disingenuous, because, I mean, it's like it turns this thing where... I mean, that's not...
The white savior has arrived.
That's not the win you think it is.
Because, I mean, it's
Imagine putting yourself in debt to be in school, and this is the extent of your intellectual exercise. So, someone...
Anyway.
Anyway, I appreciate you coming up here to talk.
Sure.
The crowd kind of went a little bit crazy earlier.
But I think people would be much more receptive too if you guys kind of maybe self-reflected on it a little bit, or inner reflected, I should say. Although I know everyone has their own opinions.
I don't know if you know this, but we all used to be on the left.
I'm not finished. I'm not anywhere. I think both parties are terrible.
Okay, I'm not a Republican either, by the way.
There you go. But if you guys kind of inner reflected and tried to admit some of the flaws in the system, and that's maybe part of like a MAGA or that kind of ideology, more people would be more receptive to what you have to say. Because not everything's wrong. That's why people cling to it and they go towards it. However, there's also a problem where people think, or really get into it, think that it's almost the absolute truth. So people almost see it as a religion in itself.
Okay, well, I think this is
that's my
part.
point.
This is. I'll finish up really quick. I think this is why we have this sign here. Even though it's rendering this type of a reaction, we have all been on the left and we all thought deeply about our positions, which is why that we're here and we're encouraging other people to do the same. But instead, we get whatever that monkey stuff was.
Yeah.
And I don't know why you guys are laughing. Black people can't be racist. This is your logic.
I'm not laughing, but I mean, they're being as confrontational almost as you are, even with the signs. They didn't.
The young lady behind you has been waiting for very patiently. Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hi.
I noticed that your white bodyguard held up a sign that says, "Say no to black privilege." What is black privilege?
Great question. Sure.
Well, yes, a white man, white devil is how I identify. Actually.
I didn't say white devil,
no,
but
I'm
sure.
saying. I'll give you a great example from a few moments ago. A couple black people just walked right up, skipped the line, and started talking.
How is that black privilege?
I'll give you a good example.
Well, isn't that just freedom of
currently
speech?
the Austin Metcalf case. An unarmed kid was stabbed to death. I kind of feel like only black people can murder someone and then be a victim. He's raised $500,000. I said an unarmed victim.
You did not answer my question. What is black privilege? Because there's a definition for white privilege,
Sure.
and I want the
I can answer
definition
that.
of black privilege.
I can answer that. Black privilege is the privilege to blame all of your problems and all of your shortcomings on other people. It's the privilege, it's implied. It's the privilege to get up here and not be held accountable for acting like a buffoon because you think it's a win. That's because I'm assuming you agree that there's such a thing as white privilege, do you not?
Because there is.
Okay, and so there's no black privilege. So why
There's
is
no such
privilege
thing.
only?
How can you say that there is black privilege considering the history
History of
behind
what?
the black struggles? Black people have been enslaved.
Yeah,
and
by
then-
other black
wait,
people.
Let me talk.
Where was the
Let
black
me
privilege?
talk. Don't interrupt me, because I'm not interrupting you.
I'm a black woman.
No, I don't care. I'm a person of color
Oh, whoa.
too. I'm a person of color too.
Oh, okay.
And you're interrupting me, and I'm not
Amazing.
interrupting you, so don't interrupt me.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Continue.
I could give you an example of how black people are not privileged today. For example, the medical system. Black women are not giving painkillers because they were considered and they are stereotyped for being tough. And many of those women have died for not being medicated as they should.
I get painkillers.
Another example can be the prison system. Many of the people that are in prison are people of color.
Okay, did they commit crimes?
Yes.
Okay.
But
Okay.
But most of the time, they are detained for crimes that are not even as bad. They
All
could be detained for stealing something of, let's say, a small amount of money.
Okay.
Also, I don't know how you can be sitting in a table talking against your own racial identity.
My identity isn't in my skin color.
But you are black.
I'm not blind. I do see that I am black, but
So how
that's
can
not
you
my
sit there and
identity.
say that black people have privilege when they don't? For example, if a police were to pull you over, you're not going to have the same privilege as your counterparts. They have more privilege than you.
That's an assumption.
That's not an assumption.
What privilege do these guys have?
That's
that I
not an
don't?
assumption.
What privilege do they have that I don't?
They're white. Like the example that I gave you, if
Just
a police...
just white by default?
If the example that I gave you, which you're ignoring, if a police were to
I've been stopped by the police. Okay.
And what has been your...
I paid my ticket and I drove on my way.
But unfortunately, not everyone has that privilege.
Okay, so then it sounds like it wasn't something specific to white privilege or black privilege. It's just the fact that we had a good interaction and I gave him respect and he respected me and we went about our day.
But in this political system, how can you say that black people have privilege? In this political environment, how can you say that a black person has privilege?
I believe everyone has privilege because we all bring something different to the table.
But what is black privilege?
Some people, I just told you, you didn't like my answer.
That is not black privilege.
The
That
privilege
is just
to blame
freedom of
all of
speech.
your problems on everyone else, the white man, the system, you go ahead.
Okay, so just one example that we could use is the modern push toward diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we know for a fact that black individuals have been prioritized when it comes to making hiring decisions, when it comes to being admitted in schools. The standards have been lowered across the board, whether it's admissions into schools, whether it's acceptance into jobs, prioritization into promotions into management. And there have been active pushes to actually say, we are no longer going to hire white men. We are no longer going to take any more white students. We are no longer going to allow white management in our company. So based solely off of the color of your skin, if you are a black individual, you are being given preferential treatment in the workplace, in academia, and just about every aspect of life that you can imagine. So how is it not privilege if just by showing up with the color of your skin, you're being told you're going to be allowed to advance, while the white students and white people in the workplace are being told you're not going to be allowed to advance?
Sorry.
How is that not privilege?
So from my understanding, it sounds something similar to what Elon Musk said about the DEI programs.
Yes.
Where he said that it is discriminatory.
It is.
But how can it be discriminatory when it's just helping those minorities that have been oppressed for so long?
It's not helping minorities who've been oppressed for so long.
That have been oppressed for so long.
No, it's not helping minorities that have been oppressed for so long.
In what way is it not helping minorities that have been oppressed for a long time? Because from what I know, white people have never been oppressed the same way that black people have been oppressed.
I just gave you examples.
And that oppression has
the
really...
Holocaust.
I'm not done talking. I'm not done talking. I'm sorry. And that oppression has impacted, and that is the reason why we have things like DEI, because those things are helping black people and people of color to obtain an education.
I just gave you examples of how white people are being oppressed.
But they're
and
not being oppressed.
They are being oppressed.
The majority of these people on campus are white. How are you going to tell me that white people are being oppressed when they're able to have an education?
Because when we live,
people of color are having a hard time having an education.
What are you talking about having a hard time having an education? There are black students sitting right here.
Yes,
and
but
I just
that is
got done
because of
telling
programs like DEI. Because those programs aid those people to be able to study.
No, anytime that we live in a system that is not meritocracy based, everybody suffers, including the people who are recipients of the privilege.
So you're suffering just because a black person is able to have some type of help?
Every single person.
Just because you don't have maximum privilege?
Every single time that anybody who is not qualified to have the position that they have is allowed to be given a position or an advancement or a promotion or are put in some sort of program where they don't have the qualifications to be there, every person suffers. Certainly, there are just as many proportionally black people or brown people who are skilled and advanced in any field as anybody else.
Like you mentioned.
But I'm talking about the fact that with the DEI programs, there are people who don't have the qualifications, don't have the skills, who are being promoted and advanced, and that negatively impacts everybody.
Like you mentioned, you were talking about people that don't have that privilege. Unfortunately, those people of color don't have that privilege just because of their color. And most of the time, they don't have that qualification due to their color.
So
that
you're
is
on
true.
this campus.
That's why we have things like Jim Crow, because those people didn't have the qualifications due to their color. That's why we have the idea of the other,
so can I
which
ask you
is the
something?
idea that other people that are from different colors don't get the same privilege as a white person.
See, that's black privilege right there. So you're on this campus. Did you get here because of DEI?
I got here because of my grades, but
because
I'm
you're
not done. I'm not done. Let me talk.
Because
let me
you're
talk.
I'm not done with my question.
As a person of color, I do benefit from DEI.
Okay, but you didn't get here because of DEI. You got here because of your merit.
But it was an aid, and that's the thing that I'm trying to get to.
Black
It's
people
an
have
aid.
access to aid.
Mm-hmm.
They have access to aid. DEI prioritizes skin color, not merit. And that's my question. You're here because of your merit. So you didn't need DEI. And that's what DEI does. It prioritizes skin color.
DEI does not
It's a
prioritize
checkbox.
your skin color. It just gives those
Yes,
people.
it does.
It just gives.
Yes, it does.
It just gives those people that have been oppressed for a really long time the opportunity to be able to study and be able to do things.
So I just want to point out that this group of students that were over here trying to convince everyone how oppressed they are have now gone around and told all the students to leave, and they left.
They did what they were told.
They did exactly what they were told by the black students.
That is not privilege, though.
They literally... because that is the power that being black wields in this country.
That is not privilege.
All of these white students felt like they had to do exactly what this black student
That
told
is
them
not
to
privilege.
do. Because if they didn't listen to him, they would have been
That
called
is
a
not
racist.
privilege, though.
That's exactly what just happened.
Can you ask the white students whether
I want to
or
hear
not?
from that guy, the
Can you
guy with
ask
the
them?
do-rag. Hey, guy, I would love to hear from you, the one that's sweeping everyone away. Can you come?
I'm sorry.
Can the white savior in the jammies let him know?
I would love to talk to your friend. Get your friend.
Can you ask these white students whether or not they left because a black person told them to? Because I think that's a
literally
crazy
what they
assumption.
did.
Okay, but you're making that assumption based on their skin color.
It wasn't an assumption. It was an observation.
That has nothing to do with skin color, though. You're making that assumption based on
But
skin
that's
color.
black privilege.
No,
That is not
no,
black
it's not. How do you
So
know
what
that
is
these
it?
people-
Define black privilege to me.
Because I assume
So you don't believe it exists?
it doesn't exist.
Okay.
How
But
can
white
you
privilege
say?
exists.
How can you say that black privilege exists? Wait, let me talk. Let me talk. I'm not done talking. How can you say? I know. How can you say that a black person has privilege when they have been oppressed for so much, and then that oppression has been ingrained in America for such a long time? So you saying that black? I'm not done. You saying that black people have privilege is a way for you to feel better about your white privilege.
Yes, people have been oppressed. Black people have been oppressed. White people have been oppressed. At some point, you're going to have to get over it and move forward. This is 2025.
But it's hard to move forward when there's so many policies that are coming out that are affecting people of color.
I'm not affected.
You're not affected, but I am as a Latina.
How? Specifically, how?
I live in fear that my parents can be deported.
Okay. Are they here? Are they here legally?
Luckily for you, you don't have to fear that.
Are they here legally?
I'm not gonna answer that because I don't have to answer you.
Okay, so that's a okay.
But I'm just telling you.
So if they are, then it's because they came here illegally and not because of the color of their skin, correct?
What does that have to do with immigration?
Because you said you live in fear that you're a Latina.
Do you know what
but-
immigration is? Immigration is coming here for better opportunities. What does that have to do with the color of my skin?
It has to do
We
with
have
coming
white
legally.
people coming here.
No.
No,
you said
what you don't do not understand
that
what
as a
immigration
Latina,
is.
you're terrified of your parents getting deported. Why would they be deported if they're legal citizens? Who was not a legal citizen?
Hey, look.
No, he was not.
Look.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it to you. I just want to make one point.
Wait, quick question. Do you guys like? Why are you guys here? Are you guys like?
Okay,
trying...
hang on,
No,
hang
no,
on.
no.
We'll come to you in just a second.
No. Why are you trying to be the next
Sir,
Charlie Kirk?
Just hold on. Yeah, you just cut the line too. To the black students over there who just bullied all of the white kids and got them to leave, I just want to say it's okay. I'm glad you're still here because we'd rather our message get to the most ignorant students on campus. So we're glad that you're still here.
I have a question. So, okay, same question. I just want to ask, why are you guys here? Just talk discussion, right?
Oh, yeah, I think we've explained why we're here. We're all former Democrats who have...
Okay. Is it okay if I talk about something that is not here, about the economy?
Sure.
Is that totally fine?
Yeah.
Okay. It might not be as good for your views, but let's give it a try.
we'd
Okay?
love to talk about that.
I think the reason why you guys are bringing this out is because it's a good way of grifting. A lot of people get a lot of money by talking about outright topics like this, right? Trans kids are taking over the world, or like black people have privilege. Like these are things that usually people use to grift, right? So I want to talk about the economy, right? Do you guys support the tariffs that Donald Trump is doing?
Oh, well, hold on. You just made a point and then glossed right over it. So I think we hear the word grifter a lot, just like racist, and it's kind of become meaningless. We all can tell you, and actually we're having a speaking event tonight. I recommend that you guys come because we will be talking more about our stories. All of us have been through quite a bit in our transition away from the Democrat Party. We're not making money off of it. No one's paying us to be here. We lost friends, we lost family. A lot of us lost jobs.
Well, you
and
got a
so
new job.
we
It doesn't
just
matter.
like you genuinely believe what you believe, and it might be very different from what we believe. I'm not calling you a grifter. We are here because we genuinely are passionate about this cause. We're not grifting.
So do you think America is very polarized at the moment and it needs way more unification than division?
Yeah, I think we all agree that America's pretty
And you guys
polarized
think
right
you guys are contributing to that unification in politics instead of polarization?
Well, we've had several discussions, and really, it's been some people in the audience, not everyone, has been a little disrespectful and tried to shut down the discussion. We're having discussions with people, and we're okay with the fact that you disagree with us.
Do you think you guys would have done just as well if you guys had these signs out or not?
Can I say something about this? I feel like this comes up all the time, is that, oh, well, if you just didn't word this one thing on the sign properly. Can I just say, that is a crock of shit. What people mean when they say that is don't talk about these things.
No.
It could be worded completely
I
differently.
think there are way
and
more
we would
important
get the
issues. That's why I don't
same
talk about the
answer.
economy, right? So do you guys support the tariffs or not?
I think that it's a very new thing, and I am open-minded to see where it goes. And I do actually trust Donald Trump's business sense. So I have no reason at this point to panic about it. I'm not panicked like a lot of people on the left are.
Okay. So do you also support
But I think
Doge?
time will tell.
Do you also support Doge?
I do.
Do you believe in climate change?
I don't.
Do you believe vaccines cause autism?
Well, I mean, I don't believe the left's narrative about climate change. I believe that the climate has been changing since Earth has existed.
Because? Why is it
various
changing?
factors. I mean, it's been changing since before humans were on the planet.
Okay. So you don't believe that climate change right now is because of human pollution?
I don't think that there's a significant
Okay.
change.
So you don't believe in it, basically?
I don't believe in the
You don't
left-wing
think it's a
narrative
threat?
about climate
You don't
change.
think it's a threat?
I don't.
Okay. So
No.
you also believe vaccines cause autism?
I think it's possible.
Okay. So a lot of the things that you believe aren't really based on experts or, actual intellectualism, right?
Oh, sorry. I was still thinking about the vaccine thing, but
you,
go ahead.
You are mostly against, on a lot of your political point of view, right? Like against experts or intellectuals, right?
I don't think that's true.
Okay.
No.
Okay, that's fair. Okay. So
I
let's talk
would-
about Doge, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Do you support what Elon Musk is doing?
Mostly, yes.
Do you think Elon Musk should be in government?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know.
Or about other people?
What's that?
You guys have 4 people.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I like some things. I don't like some things. I think the important point, though, is that a lot of people are flipping out about Elon Musk's involvement, that, oh, he's a billionaire and stuff, but you never hear anything from the same people about George Soros, about every other billionaire and corporation that has constantly pushed the radical left into political power. Okay. So I would love if we could get them all out, but in the meantime, I'm kind of not too upset that there's one on the right.
Okay, what about you?
Kind of feel the same. I have a distrust for government in general, to be honest.
Of course.
Although I walked away from the left, I don't align with any political party because I just don't trust people. So it's not the ideal government that I would like, but it's far better than what we would have ended up with if the last election ended in the opposite direction.
Okay, what about her?
All right.
What's your stance on Elon Musk?
What about her?
Well, what's your name?
Henry.
I just want to point out respectfully, Henry, that you kind of made a dig on our signs when you first got up here, but then you asked Brandon a whole litany of questions. Oh, so you must think this, you must think that, you must think vaccines cause autism. Oh, so it's not based on experts, it's not based on intellectuals. So you just decided based off of one belief that he had. I'm just pointing out, if we're talking about more unity, I don't know if your approach is the best either, Henry.
Okay, what is your stance on Elon Musk?
All right. I agree with everyone else here. I don't know that I love him. I don't know that I hate him. I think that he is a temporary employee. He's on his way out. He's not going to be there forever. Every single president has appointed people, that we don't elect everybody in the cabinet. And I think we can all agree that we would like to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. We all agree that our taxes are too high. So I don't... We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. Let it play out.
Do you think there's a major wealth inequality issue in America?
I would agree with that. Sure.
So do you think billionaires and government is a solution to that?
Well,
Such as Elon Musk cutting down IRS by half.
The IRS? Yeah, I'm for cutting down the IRS.
By half.
By 100.
So do you also think there's a problem with rich people not paying their fair share?
No.
No, not at all.
No.
You don't think rich people are paying enough?
Well, we know that they're paying the majority of taxes. They're far disproportionately paying taxes compared to the rest of us.
You don't think they should be? You don't think a progressive tax is a good idea?
Still not enough.
Right.
You don't think a progressive tax is a good idea?
I think that, well, the question that's usually asked, and I don't remember if you just said these words or not, but it's usually, are billionaires paying their fair share? And so I guess the question becomes, what is their fair share? Because we know they're paying more than the rest of us are.
They should be paying even more.
Why?
And that's pretty fair, right?
Why should there be a penalty on being successful?
A lot of people are getting away with not paying their taxes. For example, Jeff Bezos, he moves to Florida so that he can pay way less taxes. A lot of people, for example, have islands or other places, for example, to not pay taxes. Do you think that's a good thing or not? And there should be better enforcement of it.
Like I said, we know for a fact that billionaires are paying more in taxes than the rest of us are. And I do think that there is a comprehensive push by the political left to disincentivize meritocracy, and success. We spend a lot of time trying to elevate people who don't have the skills and merit to be successful, and then we try to disenfranchise and penalize being successful. And those things, I think part of the American dream is try to strive to be wealthy, successful, and to not have limits on what one can achieve. But what you're trying to say is that, no, you should be penalized for being successful, and if you're too successful, you should be responsible for paying for everybody else too. Why? I don't understand.
I think at a certain point, if you're a billionaire, you have exploited another person, and also at the same time, you most likely are accumulating that wealth in not ethical ways. And also, a lot of them.
That's a lot of assumptions.
That's just not
a
true.
lot of assumptions.
Do you think when you become a billionaire, you think all those steps that you took is most likely an ethical way?
I don't know. Yeah, you can't just assume that because somebody's successful, they're a bad person or an unethical person.
Most likely.
But I can see your mentality. That makes it easy then to be like, well, yeah, let's take their money. Let's take everything they have. I've already decided they're a bad person.
My final question is, what do you think is the solution to the wealth inequality in America? A lot of us, for example, cannot afford basic groceries. That's a big issue, right? For example, things are getting more and more expensive because of like dumb tariffs that obviously is going to make things much more expensive. That, for example, Doge, it's not really doing its job. I think that's pretty fair to say, right? Even them lying that they cut down $600 billion when actually they added a zero and it was actually $600 million, right? I think those kind of things are usually not good.
My answer to the question, what to do about the wealth inequality problem, is stop voting for Democrats. That's my answer to that question. Let's move on, please. Thank you, sir.
I wanted to ask something along the lines of the economic debate. I want to ask...
Can you speak up a little bit?
What do you think was the most prosperous economic time in the United States?
Anybody? Probably after World War II.
I agree. That had some of the highest proportion of economic growth. Why do you think that is?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I agree that statement had one of the highest proportions of economic growth. Why is that?
You tell me.
I'd like to hear what you know.
Well, I think that most people presume that after the war, the economy began booming because people were getting back to work and America was recovering from the Second World War, and it was a time of prosperity.
What policies helped increase that prosperity?
You were going to say it's because of the top marginal tax rate that it was over 90%.
That and other government investment that the administration, including Doge, is cutting, including innovation and research funding that helped create this university and America's greatest inventions and prosperity.
Like what? What have they cut that's upsetting you so much?
Research funding to universities that has driven the American economy for 70 years.
They just cut all research funding to universities?
They're cutting billions of dollars of research funding. That is a fact. They're withholding that from universities.
Well, what are we researching?
Medical devices, aerospace technology, things that have continued
So
the American
we're talking
economy.
about Harvard. Harvard has over $50 billion in endowments. And if you want federal money on top of that, our hard-earned taxpayer dollars, I think that you have to follow what the federal rules are. And Harvard has refused to take action as far as anti-Semitism. So I don't know. If you don't want federal dollars, then you don't have to follow what the government says. But if you want our tax dollars, I think it's pretty fair to say, well, yeah, you do have to follow what the federal government is outlining. Trump and Doge aren't just going in and cutting research funding. This issue with Harvard is separate from just we're going to cut all of the research.
But that research is independent from the university's aims and political affiliations. That is a whole nother conversation. But why should medical research, for example, be cut because of a perceived political affiliation that a university administration has?
My answer to this is that in the case of Harvard, I think that if Harvard wants taxpayer dollars on top of over $50 billion in endowments, then Harvard needs to follow what the federal government says. It's nothing unreasonable.
The difference between the funding, research funding, and the perceived political affiliations of the university are two separate things. Why does important research...
But you're acting like Trump is going in and cutting research funding. That's not what he's doing.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think it's a difficult conversation to have without being specific, because you're just making it sound like, oh, important medical research is being cut, but we've actually seen many of the line items that have been being cut, and none of these things, I'm not saying none, but the vast majority don't seem very crucial, dire things that are being cut. I mean, if we're cutting, transgender programs or pride programs overseas, like this is not important medical funding. And to her point, if you're so concerned about it, why are you digging in your heels and saying, unless you allow biological males to participate in women's sports, that you're going to side with that rather than getting your federal funding? I mean, is the funding important or not? A lot of these schools have been fighting the Trump administration when the Trump administration has said, we're going to cut your funding unless you stop allowing biological males in women's sports. And they're like, no, we're going to keep allowing the biological males. They don't seem to care that much about these important medical programs that you're so concerned about.
Because they believe that the important research that has benefited the American economy is not associated with these political and ideological beliefs.
Well, you would think that would not be the hill that you would want to die on if these programs were so important. But we do have a line behind you. I appreciate your thoughts.
It was a nice try to.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for being so patient.
You're welcome. I wanted to talk about something that you guys mentioned earlier. How you guys were saying that about black people. I'm bringing you back to that.
Sure.
You guys were saying how they're the ones that don't care about Black lives because they're killing their own people. And I assume that's you guys are talking about gang violence, etc. I would like to ask you guys, why is it that since America has been constructed that you guys have made there's still modern day segregation, and the low income and poverty is all people of color and black people, and violence is directly linked to poverty. And then you guys are confused when there is gang violence and segregation, when you guys have made the communities segregated till date. There's still modern day segregation. So of course there'll be black on black violence if there is. You guys are making segregated communities. And I would also like to say, black privilege. Is black privilege a little boy playing with the water gun in his front yard and getting shot because he looks threatening? Is that black privilege?
I think that what you just described is an incredibly rare instance, and probably the only. Well, let's talk about the black privilege in the instance that you just named. You wouldn't even know that an incident like that occurred if it happened to a white child. The fact that you even know about it is because
it wouldn't happen to a white child.
It happens every day.
It doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen every day.
It happens all the time,
It
but the
doesn't.
media doesn't. You think that it doesn't because you're not hearing about it in the media.
Oh, okay.
But the media will run out.
How do you know about it?
The media will run because the media covers these things wall to wall.
Oh, okay.
When these instances happen to black Americans, the media wants to tell you, they salivate over stories like this because they're so excited to make people like you believe that this is a common
like
occurrence
me?
in America. Yeah, because you seem to believe that this is a common experience that's happening when it's not.
I seem to believe that police brutality against colored people and black people is a common thing when it's an uncommon rare occurrence.
But did we or did we not burn the country to the ground in 2020 over George Floyd?
Who's we? Because it wasn't you.
You're right. It wasn't us. It was probably our friends over here. But
The black people?
But
Oh shit! The black people.
the people who've been acting up, yes. But the point is, we burned the country to the ground in 2020 because we were told that that police brutality against black people was such a pervasive issue that this is what we needed to do. We needed to have a racial reckoning. We needed to burn the country to the ground. Name 3 other black people who've been killed by police officers since 2020.
Why did you guys do the Boston Tea Party? I just want to know. Side note, what was that about?
Come on. No, we're not going to go back to the Boston Tea Party. We're going to stay in the present for a moment.
All right, let's stay in the present.
Give me the names of 3 black people who've been killed by police officers since 2020.
Give me the name of 3
You can't
white
do
people.
It. It's okay. You can't do it.
Can you do it?
I get it. No, I can't because it doesn't happen. It's so rare it doesn't happen.
No, I'm saying
that's
name
why
3
I can't
white
do
people.
it.
I'm saying name 3 white people that has.
I can't because the media doesn't cover those stories.
Yeah, you know it because it's your
But
relative.
the point is that if this were happening, the media would run out and cover every story that they possibly could of a black person being brutalized by the police or being killed by the police. It happens so rarely.
248 what? 248 black people killed by what?
For what? That doesn't mean that we're unarmed.
Tell us now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, tell us the number of white people
More
killed.
white men than black men are killed by
You want to know what else? More white men? White men are over 50% of rapists, yet 16% of black people have been that. Over 50% of school shooters have been black people, yet white people are, have been white people, yet black people are nowhere near that statistic.
Crime is bad. Crime is bad.
We are doing black on black violence. All right, bad. You guys
This
are
was
over
your
here.
question.
School shootings are all white people. Rapists, over 50% is
Yeah,
white
a lot
people.
of them are trans people too. They're not just white; they're also
sorry.
trans.
Oh, sorry.
So
There's
don't forget that.
Trans people make up like 3% of America. I don't know what you're tripping about, bro. I'm telling you, not the trans people.
Isn't it crazy that such a small percentage of people are committing so many school shootings?
Okay.
That's interesting, isn't it? Maybe we should ask questions about that. But you were the one who was asking the question about black on black violence. So
I want to ask you, why are you questioning, first of all, black violence when you are making segregated communities? You are doing all the divisions to make it happen, and then when it happens, you're, oh wow, what
I
are you guys
absolutely
doing?
will agree with you that there is a connection between poverty and crime, like no doubt about it. But you do have to ask the question, why are poor white people, why are poor Asian people not killing each other like poor black people are killing each other?
Poor white people still live within the same community as rich white folk. There's not a segregation because of your
Poor people live in poor neighborhoods.
Poor people live in poor neighborhoods. Nobody is saying you guys are.
But why are poor Chinese people not out killing other poor Chinese people?
What are you talking? What are you talking? Yeah, go ahead.
Why are you trying to make like a homogenization of an entire race and specific characteristics that make that race or that ethnicity do a certain thing?
Not even low-income communities. You guys are putting them in the slums, in the trenches, and then you're confused.
Who's putting them there? Are they being forced to stay there?
No, when you guys have built segregated communities,
Who's we?
If ancestors and ancestors, your ancestors.
Your ancestors.
All right, because you guys came illegally, right? My bad. You guys are over here crying about the Mexicans coming illegally. You guys are all illegal yourself.
But I don't know.
Half my ancestors were put in ovens in the Holocaust, and the other half were fighting in World War II.
Right, and now there's modern day Nazis
So
who's
now we're back to this rhetoric, which is we already covered this. Like,
I think the thing that I take issue with is you're wondering why we have this question about do Black lives really matter, and you're mentioning all of these cases where they were in relation to Black Lives Matter, like Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, things like that. But how come there is no marching when it pertains to black on black crime within inner cities? It almost comes off as people don't actually care about black lives until the media says, now I need you to focus on this. So where is the moral consistency? I don't see it.
So Black Lives Matter is because the media says to. Otherwise, we don't give a trash about black people, right? Okay.
Right, which is exactly what you're saying, right? That the media pushes the narratives of what we're supposed to care about, right?
Sure, yeah,
And so you're
absolutely.
saying, right?
Absolutely.
I agree. I think that the media massively chooses to polarize people, and that is one of the biggest ways that they get engagements. But one, I want to talk about the really uneducated claims that you guys are making that that crime or police brutality against people of color and black people is uncommon, because when you look at statistics, not media, statistics have shown that there is a disproportional rate to the crime that is being done against people of color and black people in this country compared to white people. Those are statistics. Those are not media trying to polarize me. Those are statistics that you can read from the federal government, number one. Number two, you were talking about why don't we care about Black Lives Matter when it's about gang violence, right? People don't want to talk about black on black gang violence because exactly what she was talking about, the origins of this gang violence and the origins of these communities and the origins of, the impoverished situations that lead to crime, right? I'm not excusing.
I think that's where I'm getting at. How can we expect society?
Gang violence is not an issue. Gang violence is an issue, as well as police brutality, as well as racism. It's all within this. No one is saying.
Do black people have any agency over their own lives or
100%
not?
they do. You're saying that I'm trying to blame, right? I'm not trying to absolve blame or ascribe blame to anybody. I'm not saying, oh, you did this crime, but because you're black, it's fine. Nobody is saying that.
No, but you are saying because you're black that you don't have a choice to not be in a gang. You don't have a choice.
That is not what I'm saying. I am not saying that you can absolve the crimes of anybody because of what they look like in their skin color. I'm saying that you are ignoring the systematic development of this country and the ways in which those affect people, their perceptions from other people onto them, how they're affected in everyday life, their families, their family histories. All of these things are extremely interconnected. And when you choose to ignore the stories that are told about people for them and by people for other people, then you are massively ignoring why we have issues in this country. And you're like, if we just, I guess from the
But you're part of the problem. You
what?
actually are the problem, not us.
What's my part? That's fine.
Because
yeah, it is
at
really
least
hard.
Our message, the four of us, our message is that if you are black, you actually do have agency over your own life. You actually do have the ability to make good decisions and good choices. You can change your life. Your message is if you're black, you're doomed. And if you're doomed, why shouldn't you join a gang? And if you do join a gang, why shouldn't you be around violence?
I didn't say that. Who said that? I'm talking about
You are sitting here.
Everybody has agency. 100% everybody has agency.
You are standing there repeating the dangerous and destructive narrative and reinforcing the narrative that if you're black, you are doomed. And our message is no, you're not. Stop listening to white liberal women and take control of your own life. You do have power over your own life.
I'm Mexican. Thank you. I'm Mexican. Thanks.
Also, I just wanted to bring up something that was said earlier, that girl came over to say 200-something black people have been killed by cops since 2020. 3,300 white people were killed by cops since 2020.
We're talking about unfairly and police brutality. We're not talking about, in general, that's how many people have been killed in total.
I appreciate it. Can we hear from the people behind you? Thank you so much.
Hey, quick question. So you said that Democrats are real fascists. Do you see what's happening in our country right now with Donald Trump?
Yeah, you got to tell us what's happening because we're not going to see it.
Let's see.
The way you do.
First, we see the visa revocations.
The what?
Visa revocations of student activists. Limits on free speech. Right, guys? Let's see. Funding cuts.
So funding cuts is what amount you believe fascism is funding cuts.
Because we have to spend less money on government waste, we're the victims of fascism. Actually, Donald Trump, I don't think there's ever been a president in American history who's taken so many actions to try to protect free speech, especially on college campuses, as Donald Trump.
Revoking visas does not promote free speech.
And he has been fought on just about every decision he's ever tried to make. But if I compare that to the last administration, that was literally rounding up conservative citizens from their homes, taking them away in the middle of the night, putting them in D.C. prisons, where they sat for years on misdemeanor charges and were never heard from again, as the left-wing media celebrated and people on the left seem to celebrate these decisions. That was fascism. I mean, the Biden administration is the closest I ever want to see America come to fully embracing authoritarianism. Okay. And thank God for President Trump. Thank God for Donald Trump for coming in and, number one, liberating the J6ers. Thank God for that. Number two,
bro, really?
Thank God.
Bro, he took over.
Thank God for Donald Trump for coming in and putting a stop to Joe Biden's authoritarian regime.
You talk about black privilege, but now there's literally white privilege. They committed crimes. They tried to overthrow the government, and you're thinking that wait, shush, bro. Give me a sec. They try.
He likes being talked to like that, so
they try to overthrow the government, and then you're saying, "Thank God they let the January sitters be free." Please, please explain me.
I'm going to. Do you think that the United States government can be overthrown with pepper spray?
Do you think that a bunch of people storming the
Yes or no? Okay, fine. Do you think a bunch of people storming a building could result in the toppling of the United States of America?
I don't know.
Do you think there was a scenario in which on January 6th, we would now, from that point forward, we would be living under the rule of a man with horns because these people went inside the Capitol on January 6th? Was there a legitimate threat that we were on the brink of being overtaken on January 6th?
Bro.
Or is it more likely that a riot happened amongst a group of people who were agitated and got out of control?
Well, tell me this. Quick question. Why is it that Trump incited them?
How?
Bro, there were multiple Twitter tests on saying, please go protest at the Congress and to overtake them.
Peacefully.
Yeah.
You guys always leave that word out. He said protest peacefully.
Yeah.
Tell me. One more question.
Unlike a lot of your heroes in the Democratic Party that were actively cheering on Black Lives Matter and raising funds for them.
Look. I hate Democrats. I hate Republicans. You know why? Both of them are the same coin, just different sides.
Well, we probably have a lot in common then.
Yeah.
We probably have a lot in common. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Now, quick question.
Oh.
Yeah. Give me a sec.
Well, the people behind you have been very patient, though, too.
Well,
What's the quick question?
well, you say that black lives there's black privilege. Please tell me more about black privilege during slavery. During Jim Crow.
Well, we're not living in an era of slavery anymore. We're talking about what's happening modern, like today.
Why is it that generational wealth from blacks were taken away?
That's more than one question, sir.
Can I answer that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. And then we have to move on. Please.
I think that this entire mentality is designed to disempower black people. Why is it that Jews could be put in ovens much more recently than slavery and are now very, very successful? That Asians could be put in internment camps much more recently than slavery and are wildly successful now. Yep. And you never hear about, but the internment camps. Gotcha. Sorry, thank you for coming.
Except that the Jews of their own homeland,
we're talking about in this country.
Africa exists. Yeah. I mean, that's a thing.
Well, I mean, Africa is still being oppressed.
Yeah. We're going to move on. Thank you so much.
What's up, y'all?
Hi, how are you?
Y'all like that new Cardi album or what?
Love it.
Y'all heard that shit?
Yeah.
That's the best, album
so
ever, right?
It's so good.
Ain't no one ever made no better shit than that, right?
Love it.
What you mean, man?
Thank you.
What's better?
Thank you.
What's better?
No doubt.
What's better than the I Am Music?
We're in SoCal, no doubt.
Yeah, it's fire, right? That's all I gotta say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you. Hey there.
Howdy.
Hi.
You doing? My name's Hunter. I don't know if I should be revealing that. Okay, so y'all hit a lot of stuff police violence against black people. You brought up police shootings against white people, and you didn't. Really...
I'm gonna be heartbroken if you're a liberal.
I'm not a liberal.
I mean, you look like such.
I'm not a liberal. I'm more of a communist.
Oh God.
You know what I'm saying?
You were so cute until you said that.
Yeah, I appreciate
well,
that. No, not really. That's
he looks like a little redneck. I was so excited. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I got you. Okay, so you're not really taking into account the proportion of the population. So we know there's studies on the proportion of black. It's disproportionate against black people. Police violence. That's been empirically studied.
So is the crime being committed?
No, that's not true. If you account for there's studies you can account for the same crimes. Drug use, for example, the rates are the same, and black people are 4 times more likely to be convicted.
Okay, that's fine, but the problem is we're pretending, and again, we're pretending like literally black people are being pulled over at routine traffic stops and being killed, and that this is a common occurrence. In almost every example of a black person being killed by a police officer, they were resisting arrest, or they were actually fighting with a police officer, or they were armed and assaulting an officer.
Hold on. Okay, so assault means you should murder somebody. You have a license to murder somebody.
A police officer has a right to respond if the person if they feel in threat or in danger.
With murder.
By taking lethal action.
Taking lethal action.
Yes.
That's nice. That's really nice
language.
In
which case, then, it's not about their skin color. It's about their actions. That's the point.
Okay, and you also there's a burden of proof on you to prove that they're violent. There's also studies on that. Tons of unarmed black people are killed. And also disproportionately. We have studies on that.
A police officer
violence,
is 18 and a half times more likely to be shot by a black man than an unarmed black man is to be shot by a police officer.
Okay, look at...
True facts.
Okay. I'm kind of losing...
But again, here's the thing that we can agree on. We can agree that there is a problem. That's the thing.
Dude, police violence kills more people every year. I looked, at least in the year 2021 when I looked, than mass shootings did, for example. All right, that's... You want to talk about that?
Well, I'm glad to hear that mass shootings are not a prevalent problem.
No, they are.
We're constantly being told by the left that they are, and that we need to ban guns. I'm glad we don't need to.
Conversations at once.
Thank goodness.
I think marginalized people have the right to bear arms, bro. I think trans people and black people should have the right to bear arms.
Agreed. Yeah, we agree.
And immigrants have the right to protect themselves.
100%.
All right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of Trump saying that immigrants poison the blood of the nation, and now he's revoking visas, he's revoking hundreds of thousands of asylum claims for people? I mean, you talk a lot about illegal immigration. Crossing the border is a civil offense. I know I'm hitting a lot of points, but you want to like address any of that?
Nearly every comment that Donald Trump has ever made about immigrants, he was making about MS-13. And the media skewed those comments to say that this is what he was saying about immigrants and illegal, I shouldn't have said immigrants, migrants. Poisoning the blood of the nation is talking about rapists, murderers, gang members, killers who are coming into our country illegally.
That's why everyone he's deporting, why don't they prove it in trial through due process that they're gang members?
Well, I think that probably is happening most of the time.
It's not. Actually,
You're going to use the example of one person.
Invoking this. No, I'm using the example of hundreds of thousands of people hundreds of people who've been deported through the Alien Enemies Act, bro.
This is the second. Well, first of all, that might not be happening anymore. A lot of people keep mentioning Kilmar. Kilmar is a Salvadoran citizen. He was here illegally. He was here illegally from 2012 until 2019.
And in
2019,
he had 2 kids.
Yeah, but he didn't have papers. In 2019, he sought asylum, and the only reason that he sought asylum was that he was in trouble with the law. Two separate judges. I'll let you go in a second. Two separate judges ruled in 2019 that there was sufficient evidence for this man that he was a member of MS-13.
No, that's not true.
And so
that's not true.
Sir,
the judge gave him an order to not be deported.
Right, no,
in
he gave him an order to not be deported to El Salvador because Abrego Garcia was worried about rival gangs. But he did have an order of deportation in 2019. 2 different judges said that he was a member of MS-13.
No,
Okay,
they
so
didn't.
this man,
he has no criminal convictions. He has no criminal convictions.
Okay, but this man was here illegally, and 2 separate judges in 2019 ruled that he was a member of MS-13, and he was not given asylum. His claim of asylum was denied in 2019, and they said that he could not be deported to El Salvador. That's the only thing. He did have
status.
He had an order of deportation. He couldn't go to El Salvador. Okay, and
now they sent him there to a concentration camp.
No, he's out of. Okay, well, he's been out of there for about a week.
The Santa
and
Ana
he's in a
prison
place.
Supposedly, where
he's in a place with better conditions. Donald Trump does not have control over what El Salvador does.
Really, Bukele's on his payroll, bro. I'm sorry, you're not going to pretend the most powerful man in the world doesn't have control.
This man was here illegally. Okay,
so send him to a concentration camp.
Okay,
or,
he's out
or
of there.
prison.
We've agreed that he's out of there. This man was here illegally. He didn't have papers.
Yeah, exactly.
He was given due process. His due process was in 20. His due process.
And they said not to deport him to El Salvador.
They said not to deport him. And okay, so perhaps. Okay, hold on. Possibly he will come back from El Salvador, but he's going to be deported right back again. Okay, he had an order of deportation, just not to El Salvador. And by the way, the conditions that made him not eligible for deportation to El Salvador have since been rectified because Bukele cleaned it up. Okay, so
no, it hasn't been proven in court, but like no gang ties.
2 separate judges in 2019 said that he was a MS-13 gang member.
There was one confidential informant that they based it off
2
on the judge
separate judges ruled that he was an MS-13 gang
ruled.
member. He was not given asylum.
It was not ruled.
He had a writ of deportation, but he just couldn't go to El Salvador. So perhaps we can agree that he shouldn't have been taken to El Salvador, but there's no world in which he's coming back here.
All right, so bigger picture. Okay, well that's unfortunate because he has a family here. Like
I agree that it is very unfortunate that this man was here from 2012 and didn't have any papers at all, didn't have a green card, didn't have anything. He was here illegally.
And made such bad choices.
Okay, so that means you should just send him away. And
yes, if you are in this country illegally, I don't care what your skin color is, you should be sent
it's a civil
away.
Offense, bro.
You should go back. Why are you cutting the line? Where was the due process for all of us American citizens when millions of people came into the border, unvetted people came into the border? Where was the due process for Rachel Morin? Where's the due process for Laken Riley?
Okay, you're trying
Jacqueline
to cherry
Nungaray.
pick.
No, I'm not cherry picking. I'm asking where is the due process for American citizens? All of us. We've been talking about.
Everyone's supposed to have a right to due process.
Right. We've been talking about I understand that, but if we give a trial to all of the millions of people that Joe Biden got in, it's
he
going to take 30
deported more
years.
people than Trump's first term.
It's going to take.
There were more deportations under Biden than under Trump's first term.
And there are less people coming in now.
Right, but you're saying he just had this open border or let.
Yeah, that started from about September on. He let the whole thing
he
be
also
open,
detained
and
people
then
in Guantanamo
September
who were asylum
2024,
seekers.
he decided to close the border.
Right, I agree. I think there's been a bipartisan groundwork for Trump's fascism. The Democrats are running to the right on this, so I'm not here to defend that.
You're saying the Democrats are in cahoots with Trump to be fascist?
But they paved a lot of the legislation that has been passed that's been used by Trump.
What? I don't know what you're talking about.
The 1952 Immigration Nationality Act, the 1996 immigration illegal immigration law, The
Well, yeah,
Democrats
Joe
go right
Biden
along with
was-
this shit.
well, yeah,
Like,
sure.
And they pave the way for racists and demagogues to exploit this shit.
This has nothing to do with racism. If you're here illegally, you can be white. I want you deported.
Okay. Well, let's see what
We have no
what-
country if we have no borders.
Right. So that's why they're detaining like U.S. citizens and profiling because they're
Who?
Hispanic.
Who?
The guy in Florida like a week ago.
The guy in Florida.
I
don't know what to say to the
I
guy.
don't know. His last name was Lopez. We're getting like distracted on like individual cases, but like
What kind of fascist
profiling.
prioritizes their own citizens? Like, I don't understand that. Like, what type of fascism is about making your country safer for the people who
Fascism
live
is
there?
literally about in-group, out-group mentality. Like you're trying to divide people by nationality. That's the whole.
It's not
freaking
by
point.
nationality. It's whether you're here legally or illegally. That's what makes a country. That's what makes a country.
Path to citizenship, right? Why are we
We
rounding
have
them
a
up?
path to citizenship, and we have
No,
people
we don't.
in line for multiple years.
Yeah, what about their families? What about their wives? This guy, who's not only a wife beater, but the court ruled in 2019 that he couldn't be deported to El Salvador because they were worried about rival gang violence.
How do you
and
feel-
that alone to me is the point. What
Wait,
the
how do you-
fuck
how
do
do
we
you
need
feel about-
with
how do
people
you-
mixed
dude,
up in
dude.
El Salvadorian gang violence
All right.
coming into the country illegally?
How do you feel about a wife beater being the head of the Pentagon, bro? Are you gonna say anything about that?
If he's a citizen, you can't do anything about it. If he wasn't, deport his ass.
Well, throw your hands up about it. Yeah, sure, okay.
Yeah, that's very bad.
We don't approve of wife beating. We don't like it. Next, please. Thank you, sir.
Hello, I just want to ask you guys a quick question.
Can you keep your voice up?
Oh yeah. Are you able to debate a little bit of economic policy?
We kind of did.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask how exactly you guys believe the Trump's tariffs is a benefit to the country in general.
Well, we had this question earlier, and you
I
guys
wasn't
can jump
there,
in if you.
so-
Yeah, no, that's okay. You guys can jump in if you want to. I think what I said, and I think what most of us agreed with, is that we don't have enough evidence at this point to make a decision. What I'm not going to do is jump on the left-wing panic bandwagon and assume that the sky is falling. And there was this narrative very recently that the stock market was crashing, and then it recovered within 24 hours. And actually,
no.
Yeah.
The only reason why it's recovered is because he paused the tariffs for 90 days.
But I can tell you this. If we can get to a point where through these tariffs, first of all, America's not being taken advantage of on a global scale, one, and two, I don't know to what degree Trump is being serious or not, but I actually believe he probably is being serious. If we can get to a point where we can significantly reduce, if not eliminate, the Internal Revenue Service, I 100% would be behind tariffs.
You're trying to
for that
eliminate
reason.
taxes?
Yeah, Trump wants to eliminate income taxes.
Well, you do know that tariffs is a tax on consumers, right? You want to limit the one organization that keeps track of those taxes?
What I know is that there was a time in this country where America existed without an income tax, and we did that through tariffs. And I believe that we can do it again. And I would rather have an external revenue service than an internal revenue service. I would like to keep my own money and make other people around the world who are benefiting and thriving from our bad, lax economic policies on the foreign scale, let them pay for it. And I would like to keep my own money. And I'm certainly very open to seeing how this plays out, and I'm not going to participate in the panic around it.
Well, it's not really panic; it's the truth. Because let's go back to history a little bit here. So when the tariffs was first introduced back in during the McKinley time frame, even McKinley he actually walked back on his tariff policy on his second term. He actually did not pursue the tariff policy because tariff policy we know for a fact is just not effective in general when it comes to growth. It's going to reduce growth, and it's pretty much going to make sure that there's no competition, and because there's no competition, American companies won't have an incentive to try to better the goods and services. When you're saying America was taken advantage of, I'm not exactly 100% sure what you mean by that. Maybe I could see a little bit your argument when it comes to China, but when it comes to the EU, President Trump keeps saying that the EU was made to rip off the United States. I don't think that's true. That is just not true. It's a fact. But when it comes to China, you could maybe say that the policies they do like shipping products cheaper than the United States, which kind of undermines our goods. That's a decent argument, but you can't just blame the whole world, including your allies, when it comes to tariff policy.
I think we know at this point that Trump's negotiation style is to go for a big ask and then reel it back. It's a classic negotiation tactic. And I won't pretend that I'm any sort of economist, but I think the important point is that all of the people freaking out about tariffs now have been wrong on every single issue for all of time. These are the same people who oversaw the economy crashing in 2008, who Barack Obama then put in charge of running the economy. They've been wrong on every single issue, so I'm willing to put a bit of faith in Trump until we see what happens.
One thing to note, Trump did bankrupt his company a few times as well, so he's not that great when it comes to economic policy. The other thing I do want to mention is that, what was the last thing you said? Sorry, I didn't get that last part.
I have no idea.
Which one was who?
Oh, you, yes.
What did I say? I don't know.
He said he was willing to give faith to Trump. And
yeah, so I was going to say that the reason he walked it back was because he saw the effects it had on the economy, including the stock market, which is why he walked it back. He didn't walk it back because it was part of a 4D chess plan, like they like to say on X. He walked it back because everybody, including his own circle, told him that this is not a good idea. And especially in the short term, it's not good. Let me just point this out as well. When President Trump actually put in exemptions when it comes to these tariffs on computers, chips. Why? Because he knows exactly if it went into place, it'll just blow out the market by making things a whole lot more expensive. Because a lot of our technology is made in China, and because these big companies are able to get exemptions. That's how tariffs work. If you're big enough, you can get exemptions. If you're too small, if you're a small business, you cannot really get these exemptions. So tariff policy wipes out small businesses, but the big businesses are able to get like a little handouts by just because they're able to get lobbyists on their behalf. So because of that, he walked back a few of those tariff policies. And you already know why. And you also know that a lot of them are made in China. So it's pretty much like you're tariffing China, but at the same time you're making exemptions on certain things that are made in China. And it just doesn't make sense at all. Try to tariff China as much as you want, but that's the reality of it.
Yeah, sure. You know what? You might be completely right, but you're talking about why he walked them back, why he put a 90-day pause. We don't really know. I mean, I think we all agree that Donald Trump is a little unpredictable. I was just reading a really interesting piece in the New York Times and the Washington Post about how Pennsylvania steelworkers are for the tariffs, and I don't know what it's like to be a
the unions are for the tariffs because they get a handout from the government.
These blue-collar workers are for it. I think that a lot of us on both sides or all sides are making speculation, and we don't really know because we've never been in this situation. I'll tell you one thing, a lot of people here probably think that Donald Trump loves the sound of his own voice. I don't think that he wants to crash the economy. You could be right. Everything could be astronomically expensive come the midterms, and then we're going to lose, and it is what it is. But just like with Doge, which we were asked about earlier, I say none of us have ever been in this situation. We all complain we all complain about how nothing changes, and it seems like something is changing right now. You could be right. It could be for the worse. So let's just let it play out and see. I do think that, and I used to hate Donald Trump. I didn't vote for him in 2016. I think a lot of people tend to freak out and lose their minds and act like the sky is falling, but we're all still here. And my life, even though I hated him and didn't vote for him, my life was more affordable under Donald Trump, his first term, than it was these past 4 years. So I say just let it play out. Let's see what's happening. We don't really know. And there's a lot of very certain speculation on both sides that we don't know.
Yeah, I could talk about this all day, but you could also say that because we don't know because of so much unpredictability, it makes it really hard for the market to know how to invest in the United States. Did you know all these policies that made it really worse for the United States? Our dollar is weakened. People don't know what to invest. Most people are pulling out of the market. I
want to make sure we get to the people behind you too.
It creates so much non-credibility. So that's just the one thing I want to say.
You could be completely right about the way
and
that
also one more
play
thing.
out.
Donald Trump attacking Jerome Powell with regards to interest rates, trying to reduce it, even though Jerome Powell is keeping it high because he knows these tariffs need to be controlled somehow. Donald Trump threatening Jerome Powell is also a bad idea, and I don't think, when you say Democrats are the real fascists, I feel like forcing an independent government like the Fed to do something you want, either party, doesn't matter. I think it's a bad thing.
Great. We're doing an event tonight. I hope you will come. I believe it's at 7:30 tonight here on campus. Come. We're going to talk more about our stories. We're answering more questions. Zach, do we know the room tonight? Room 206. In what building? Social science room. Yeah, come see us tonight, 7:30. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
We can.
All right, my name's Nathan. I'm not sure if I know your guys' names. Could you introduce yourselves?
Brandon.
Mike.
Vanessa.
Vanessa?
Natalie.
Okay. So Natalie, Brandon, Mike, Sorry, one more time. Vanessa. All right, nice to meet you guys. My name is Nathan. I probably introduced myself already. So I just wanted to get a quick clarification. What is your guys' favorite fast food place?
Chick-fil-A, and I know they say they're homophobic, but as a gay, I have to say I like Chick-fil-A more than I like gay people.
I like Chick-fil-A too.
I don't really like fast food anymore.
Really?
Honestly, my taste
What
buds have
happened?
evolved.
Fast
It's
food?
shit. I don't like it.
Yeah, a lot of it is, yeah. How about you?
I also try not to eat fast food very often, but if I have to, I usually try to do something like Subway.
Subway?
Yeah.
Okay, what was your name again?
Natalie.
No, your name.
Oh, Brandon.
Brandon, all right. Nice to meet you, Brandon.
No, I'm same. I don't like fast food, but I'll go to In-N-Out sometimes.
Okay.
And why?
Well, I think In-N-Out, it feels like real potatoes and meat. I don't know.
I can
She
get
likes
behind
the
that.
real meat.
Yeah, I like In-N-Out a lot. What do you guys think about the In-N-Out fries?
I had some last night and they were okay.
It's overrated.
The In-N-Out fries are overrated, or just In-N-Out as a whole is overrated?
I don't remember. I went there with my ex. I tried to block it out.
Okay. Yeah, I get that.
Are we good?
Okay, so what did you guys have for breakfast today?
All right. We're going to move on. Thank you very much.
Okay. Oh, can I
Thank
get a
you.
selfie with you guys?
If you come back here.
Oh, okay. Can
Yeah.
I come right now?
Well, no, come tonight and we can...
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Yeah, you're
so
right.
it was Mike, right? Okay. Mike, you have the best taste in fast food. All right, have a good one.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hey, I have the best taste in fast food.
It
Hello,
shows.
guys. I'm not really here to debate. I just wanted to ask you guys a quick question about healthcare. So, Americans, they're paying average $12,000 per person for lower life expectancy, compared to Europeans and Canadians, which they pay around $7,000 for 10 years on average more. So I just wanted to get your guys' input. I'm not really here, again, to debate. What do you guys think we should do to fix the state of healthcare in the United States?
I think Americans need to take more initiative by taking care of their health and instead of relying on the government to do that for them. I think a big thing with the insurance industry is if you go to a doctor, you're limited within the confines of whatever insurance provider that you go with to get certain things done. So I would love to see people just take more care of their health instead of waiting until they're on their deathbed and they need to get something done, because the fact that we're pouring so much money into the healthcare system while we're so sick is a really big problem.
I do agree with, I guess, a lot of people on the left that I would like in this country, like if you break your leg, to have that be covered. You know, if you have an emergency that happens, I would like for it to not break the bank. But I also, I do see the position on this. I'm going to be honest, I don't know what to do about healthcare, because when we have these awful diagnoses like cancer, very expensive medicine, wealthy people from Canada, from other countries, they come here because you can get better healthcare. And I think that when you socialize medicine, it becomes lesser quality. So it's okay maybe for your broken arm, but is it okay for everything else that's much more serious? So I'll be honest, I don't know what to do about healthcare, but I understand. I also can't afford a lot of things. I come from a family that couldn't, and I do think it's a real issue that people have these bills that break the bank. And I would like to fix it, but I don't know that the answer is necessarily just socialized medicine. Yeah.
Perfect. Would you guys say that you are proponents of preventative medicine? You know, it's something that a lot of physicians in this country are proposing. It's we're going into a switch instead of curing and treating, that we should try to prevent a lot of diseases. Is this something you guys would favor?
Yes. I think yes.
All right, that's it. Thank you so much.
Very much. I want to take a minute to shout out the booth next door is the Lincoln Institute. They're registering voters over there. If any of you are not registered to vote, please go. Voting is important. Your voice is important. Go register to vote today and vote in your next election.
Hi. Earlier I heard one of you guys, I'm not sure, said that only citizens deserve due process. Did I mishear that, or are you guys firm on that? No one said. Oh, then I misheard. Okay. Another thing, I want to take it back to when you guys were talking about black people and I guess the wealth gap. I personally think one of our, not the worst, but one of the worst and overhyped presidents we've had is FDR. And it's because when he created the FHA, the Federal Housing Administration, you can look this up, in the ordinance and the codes, it excluded black people from buying certain houses or getting accepted for certain mortgage rates. And it gave them to white people, Jewish people, or other people. And black people were specifically excluded from that. And we know that maybe most of our family's wealth comes from owning a home. A lot of white people's health, especially the middle class, most of their wealth and the boomer generation comes from owning a home, mostly from FHA loans or veteran loans. And we know a lot of black people who fought during World War II, they were promised veteran benefits with low interest rates for housing, but it never ended up happening. So I feel what today's happening, that I do honestly believe that systematic segregation is gone, but we still have the effects because this happened in the 40s, 30s, 60s, and it's left a generation mostly of black people behind from wealth. But what do you guys think of that?
Can I? And then,
Yeah.
So obviously, a lot of the things that you just mentioned, historical things, not good, not a
Yes,
great, not
exactly.
not great policies that America's had historically. But I also think it's very easy for us to go back and dwell and reiterate bad policies from long, long ago in the past, and then sort of omit the evidence that is to the contrary of those things. Like, are you aware that America's first black female billionaire is a black woman? Excuse me, I said that wrong. America's first female millionaire is a black woman. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
She was the direct descendant of a slave.
Yes.
Yeah, her
Okay.
father was a slave.
What I have to say?
Do you also know that disproportionately there are more black millionaires in this country than white millionaires as proportional to their race?
Oh, to their race?
Yeah.
I guess that's true because you said it's
So
proportional.
how are
to
these
their
people
race.
doing it?
No, but what I'm trying to say
Living in
is-
the same system as all the oppressed people, how are
Yes.
they doing it?
But what I'm trying to say is something I feel like liberals or conservatives misunderstand about each other is that they say black people are oppressed, black people are this. But what I'm trying to say is that a long time ago, due to bad policies of FDR and other presidents, they were left behind from a lot of wealth.
So were all those people who became millionaires. How did they do it?
Again, those becoming a millionaire is like a 1 in a million thing. And yes, you got to do hard work. You gotta put yourself in situations. To
But
get
how
lucky.
did they do it? In a
Again,
system,
they
in a
worked
system
hard.
that doesn't allow it,
No,
that it can't happen.
That's
how
not,
did they do it?
I'm not arguing that they lived in a system that didn't allow it. I'm saying they worked hard. But we don't know what they did. They busted their butt
So
off.
you can overcome.
Yes, you can overcome.
Yeah.
But again, if 100 people strive to be a millionaire and they all do the exact same work, do you think 100 of those people will become millionaires?
I think that we live in a culture where, unfortunately,
That's
the
not
black
the case.
community is not being told that they should do all of those things to become millionaires. They're being told that they can't do it, and they're believing it.
I agree
And they're
to
not
that
being
to some
told that by
extent.
people on the right. They're being told that by people on the left.
I agree with that to some extent, but I think the underlying issue is that at the end of the day, black people were left out of a lot of wealth, especially with those FHA loans. And
Yes, I agree
we
with
see
you.
those, but
I'm just saying that's not
it's a
prohibitive from being
misdiagnosed
successful.
issue. Yes,
It's
a
not prohibitive
misdiagnosed
from
issue.
being successful. And also, on the contrary to the counterpoint, a lot of white people did not inherit wealth in this country.
Obviously, but proportionally to black people, they did, just because of the circumstances. Nothing to do with their race.
That may be true, but I'm just saying that if we look at all the factors and all the evidence, I don't think that we could come to the conclusion that whatever policies existed in the past are prohibitive from being able to succeed in this country if you work hard and you try hard.
I agree with that. I'm come from an immigrant family. My parents grew up in El Salvador. They came from a war-torn country, and they were able to buy a home here. They were able to get the residency here. So I do agree with that.
I love that.
But
It's a great story.
Again, at the end of the day, I do feel like people that come from those situations have it harder than people who don't come from those situations.
We, in
Yes.
one way or another, we all have it harder than other people, one way or another. So the question is, do we try as hard as we can and we try to succeed, or do we say, I have it harder than someone else, so I'm not even going to try?
No, that's not a good mentality.
That's not
to
a good
have. Yeah.
mentality. Thank you very much.
Oh, wait, I wanted to talk about
Yes.
the Seco prison from El Salvador, since I'm from El Salvador.
Okay, but we are running out of time. And
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to take just a couple more questions because we were supposed to wrap at 2 o'clock, but I'd love to hear from you. Yeah, come see us tonight. Yeah, thank you. Are you what room?
Social science building.
Social Science Building tonight, 7:30 p.m. Room. I think 6. Something 6. Zach, what room tonight? 206. Social Science Room, 7:30. Come see us tonight. Ask more questions. Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's my position that Trump is a textbook. It's my position that Trump is a textbook authoritarian. He's a weak leader, and he's generally not good for the American people and on the global stage. So I think this is sort of like represented in what happened on January 6th. That was a pretty egregious attack on our Constitution and our rule of law. It's also seen in sort of these abuses of corruption, like these instances of corruption, like you can see like the Eric Adams case in New York. You see him pardoning many of these people who have been put into jail, into prison for their transgression against many people. So What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I firmly disagree with you about January 6th and what that was and what happened and what it could have meant and what it did mean. I disagree with all of that.
So people didn't break into the Capitol?
They did.
Okay.
They did. No,
at the behest of Trump?
No, definitely not at the behest of Trump.
So he didn't say go in there and fight like hell? He didn't say those things?
No.
He didn't.
No.
So he didn't verbatim say fight like hell?
He said if you want to save your
So
country.
he didn't say fight like hell?
No, not in regards to going to the Capitol.
He did say
No.
that. He did. He said.
Yeah, well, yeah. What he actually said was, "We're going to walk peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol."
But that's not what happened, is it?
It's not what happened. But also, the violence at the Capitol, the violence at the Capitol.
You're a rioter.
Well, I wasn't a rioter, but it's true. I was arrested and charged for January 6th. Yeah. It's true. No, it's true. It's true. And I was innocent. So we can get into that too.
That's not what pardoning means.
So
I think when you get pardoned,
I have something in common with a lot of black
when you get
people in this
pardoned,
country. I was falsely accused and charged.
But a pardon, I think you have an assumption of guilt. I think that's what happens when you get pardoned.
So I know what it feels like to be a victim of the criminal justice system. But go ahead.
But yeah, so I think January 6th was a attack on our Constitution. He tried to.
I mean, you can think that.
He tried to coup the government. That's what happened.
Okay.
So
With old ladies waving flags on the walkers.
no, it was before breaking through windows and breaking down barricades
Yeah.
and breaking in physically and trying to attack our Congress people in their offices.
I can only imagine how upset you must have been by the Black Lives Matter riots if you care this much about January 6th, because January 6th was literally a parade compared to what Black Lives Matter did every day in 2020 in this country. And by the way, never got charged with, no one got in trouble. Talk about black privilege. Talk about black privilege. That these people, the Black Lives Matter movement could
go back to my other point.
burn. Okay, go ahead.
So yeah, we should stay on January 6th actually. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, that's fine.
So yeah, when he was telling people to go into the Capitol building,
he never said that. He never said that.
Well, that's what happened though. Right.
It did happen, but he didn't say that. You can't just make things up.
What's the assumption when he's telling people to go to there and fight like hell? Like I don't know. That's the conclusion I'm drawing when you're using this charged language and people go and charge action.
No, actually, I think this is a fair question.
Why is there no accountability on Trump's side?
I think this is a fair question, and I'm being really sincere when I answer this question. It's possible that you just don't know or understand what was supposed to happen. That day, President Trump was speaking at a building called the Ellipse. There was already a planned, scheduled second event that was happening at the Capitol, and it was supposed to be a march from the Ellipse to the Capitol. So when he was wrapping up his speech, he said, "Now we're going to walk peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol to make your voices heard." Unfortunately, a group of people had already begun engaging in a riot at the Capitol while he was still speaking, long before he said any of those things that you said, which none of them are incitement of a riot. But the plan to go to the Capitol was not his. I mean, that was already a plan, and he was telling people what the plan was. Unfortunately, some people engaged in a riot.
So when he was inciting people on these false assumptions that the election was stolen, you don't think that's inciting a sort of a coup against our government, essentially, which is what it is, right?
I don't think we've had an election in 25 years that the other side didn't challenge that the election was stolen. I literally don't think. And right now, people on the left are saying that the 2024 election was stolen.
Did he have evidence to believe that the election was stolen in 2020?
Do you have evidence that the 2024 election was stolen?
What?
The point is, it's not.
Is that how's it a response to what I just said?
As a free citizen in this country, you don't have. You can believe whatever you want to believe.
Yeah,
and if somebody believes, that's not a
crime.
crime.
Court and lost 62 times.
That's not what happened either.
That's exactly what happened. What I said was fact.
It wasn't lost based off of merit. It was lost in almost every circumstance based off of standing.
Something called standing. So if you don't have standing for a court case, you can't fight for it.
Right, but you're sitting here, you're acting as if the issue was litigated, and it wasn't litigated. It was actually, it should have been litigated. I wish it had been litigated.
He had no standing. And there's millions of dollars put into investigations on voter fraud, mail-in ballots, but
the point is,
and there's recounts, multiple, and nothing came up. So and you're still.
The only reason you care about this is because you don't like Donald Trump. But the only reason you care about this is because you don't like Donald. You did too. You said it. You thought that he was an authoritarian dictator.
I hate him. Okay.
Okay.
That's true, but that doesn't negate any of the
But
points I brought up.
Stacey Abrams said that the election was stolen from her. Hillary Clinton said that the election was stolen from her. People are now saying that Trump stole the 2024 election. This is not a new
People
thing.
go to the Capitol and violently break in when they said these things?
You know what I think is much worse? I think it was much worse when the media went on TV every night and told black people that they're not safe in this country. That caused a January 6th every single day in 2020. That's what I think. If we're going to talk about people believing that the election was stolen.
Like every time I talk about January 6th and I get into these like...
Yeah, because it was much worse and you don't care. You want to talk? Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to point out something that's rather obvious. He's not an authoritarian by definition because number one,
I mean, there's not a strict definition. But that's like textbook. Like there's textbook examples.
He left the White House. Okay, and he was out for 4 years. On top of that,
he's constantly deposing people from their
I'm
offices.
speaking. Okay. On top of that, everybody here. Everybody here.
They got me.
Everyone in the entire country, I'll let you speak after. Everyone in the entire country saw what happened on January 6th, and they saw the worst of January 6th, and they still voted this man back in office. He made inroads with every single demographic. So he's not an authoritarian because we all saw January 6th. We saw the worst of it, and I don't love everything that happened on January 6th, but we saw the worst of it, and the media hyped it up, and we still voted him back in. So he's not an authoritarian. He left office the first time.
You're just saying that he's not authoritarian. There's nothing you're saying that's proof that he's not authoritarian.
I'm pointing out.
I'm giving you examples.
No, you're not.
January 6th, deposing people that oppose him.
We've already been through that. Limiting the power of the federal government. And we've already been through Doge. We've already been through the deportations. We've talked about all this. You're talking about January 6th, and I said a couple things, and you're refusing to acknowledge them.
Okay, what did you say? Let me acknowledge 3 of your points.
I said, first of all, you can't ignore the fact that he did leave office, and he was out for 4 years.
Yeah, he left office.
You also can't ignore the fact that we all saw what happened on January 6th, and the American people still chose him, and he did better than he did last time.
Yeah, that does not
so you can't
disqualify
be
him for
sitting
being
here
authoritarian.
saying
That
he's
is not
an authoritarian. And you also, sir, you need to read up on January 6th because you're saying he said things he didn't say. He didn't say
everything
go
I said
into
was
the...
fact.
No,
everything I said was verbatim.
No, you actually made up quotes. He didn't say go into the Capitol.
I didn't say he said explicitly go into... I said he said explicitly fight like hell. Is that not a true statement?
Sorry?
Is that not a true statement that he told his...
A lot of people have said fight like hell. What does fight like hell mean? And to your point, Hillary Clinton denied the election. Multiple people have denied the election for the past 20
you're probably
years.
against Biden when he said MAGA Republicans, right? When he was talking down against MAGA Republicans?
What's the question?
Said you were probably against Biden when he was talking about how bad the MAGA Republicans are for America?
I don't know what that has to do with anything, but I don't love that language.
So
we're sitting here talking
both,
about
deflecting different points. Like
what did you're saying fight like hell is similar to a president saying evil MAGA Republicans?
Yeah, I'm saying like these are both examples of language that may be charged, but
I don't think they're comparable. A sitting president saying evil MAGA Republicans is very different than saying go to the Capitol peacefully and make your voices heard. And I don't know why we're still litigating January 6th. We all saw it, and we chose him again.
Well, I also brought up Eric Adams' case, corruption case in New York, where he's telling him explicitly you have to.
That's such a good.
You're not gonna.
That's such a good point that she made.
Eric Adams, you're not gonna talk about anything.
No, that's such a good point that she made.
Eric Adams' case in New York.
You can go on and on and on about January 6th.
Eric Adams' case in New York.
But the people still chose Trump. They still chose Trump. Thank you very much. We're gonna move on. Thank you. Yeah.
Just one last voice.
You got it.
I really wish I could be heard. Please let me finish.
We will.
It's okay to be white, but it's not okay to be a Chinese international student who does not want anything to do with politics. I'm Chinese. I'm from a place. I just want to learn. I was a STEM student. I study engineering. Now, my kind is being said they're spies. They need to get out of here. Is it fair? It is not. Socialism scares. Scares who? Scares people who doesn't want free education, free vaccines, and free healthcare system, an ER that doesn't need me to wait for 4 hours? I don't know. When is Hitler's salute okay, but communism becomes a line that shall not be crossed? When?
Thank you.
I thought she was gonna sing.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
So I wanted to talk about an issue that I feel like shouldn't be one side or the other. And I noticed your poster, Stop Transing Kids. And that's actually an issue I'm so passionate about. I think it's honestly an atrocity what we're doing to our children. Growing up, I feel like most girls, I struggled with some like body dysmorphia issues, being bullied by boys. Thank God my mother never told me, okay, maybe if you're uncomfortable in your own skin, then you're not a girl. And I think honestly it's child abuse to do these things, and I'd love to get more of your perspective on why you feel this way.
Well, you just gave a good example, and I missed it. We've been here for a couple hours, so I said this earlier. You probably didn't catch it. I mean, you've got two gay men here on this panel, and what I had said earlier is that I believe when you're a child, the best way that your limited life experience can allow you to understand subjects as complicated as sexuality, which, by the way, you really can't when you're that old. When I was 5 years old, I knew that I liked things that little girls liked. I didn't want to go out and get rough and play with the boys and fight, and I just didn't want to do that. Yeah. And it was because I was destined to grow up one day and become a gay man, and I just don't have a lot of those macho traits that a lot of stereotypical heterosexual men have. Yeah. However, I didn't realize that I was gay. I thought I was a girl. That's how my little 5-year-old mind interpreted that. It wasn't until I got older and began to understand more complex subjects like sexuality that I began to realize I wasn't a girl. I was actually a gay boy who became a gay man. But to your point, if I were that same 5-year-old boy today, I would run a significantly higher risk of somebody in my life telling me that I was transgender, and that perhaps if I wanted to have a successful life as a transgender person, I should begin taking puberty blockers now, consider taking hormones, making irrevocable decisions about my own health that later, when I was old enough to understand, wait, I was never trans. I was actually just supposed to be a guy who's gay. Now it's too late because I've permanently altered my body. That to me is the reason why this is such a troubling issue. Yeah. And somebody asked the question earlier, I'll give it over to you. We didn't really get into it because it unfortunately became too contentious, but there was a girl at the beginning who I think was alluding to the idea, well, there are transgender people in this world, which I firmly agree with, and at some point in those life, those people were children. Yeah, that's true. But I don't think that because a small number of people end up being transgender and that those people happen to be children, that we should be making such sweeping decisions and having such a permissive culture that just says anybody who at 5 or 6 or 7 or 14 or 12 or whatever years old thinks that they're in the wrong body, we should start making permanent and lifelong life-altering decisions for. I'm firmly against it.
Yeah, no, similar to Brandon, when I was growing up, I just wanted to be David Bowie. If I were growing up now, I'd be lucky to get out of middle school with my balls still attached. And I know every person in my life who has young kids, they are being told at school, maybe you could have been born in the wrong body. Maybe you're really a boy. And their parents, if they've had to relocate states, change schools, and then you find out when they put those kids in a different environment where they're happy and they're doing things they like, you never hear about this again. But if they had leftist parents, they could be deformed at this point. They could have had double mastectomies. They could have had puberty blockers. It's unbelievable to me that this is something that's even up for discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just to add to that issue, I feel like what I used to believe on why it was okay to trans kids was hearing the point, it's completely reversible. So if a child says, I feel trans right now, but later on the line changes their mind, the story that I would hear is, okay, but it's completely reversible. Little did I know that's 100% not true. So for anybody here who's heard that, no hate, that's what I thought too, until I learned that the drug, the puberty blocker is called Lupron. That same drug is used on pedophiles in prison to chemically castrate them. That's the same drug we're using on children as young as 8 to 13 when they start that second stage of puberty. So just keep that in mind when you're hearing these talking points, is it's actually not reversible. It permanently damages the kids. In most of the cases, children are left sterilized completely at that young age. So you have to ask yourself, okay, can a child decide between the ages of 8 and 13, because that's when they put them on puberty blockers, if they never want to be able to have children? That's a question. Personally, for me, I think it's no. A child doesn't even know what they're doing tomorrow. How can they know they never want to have children? So that's why I'm so passionate about it. I think for the people who truly feel this way, they can do everything up except for that gender transition. Starting at the age of 18, they can do the more serious things if it followed through. But otherwise, I really do feel it's child abuse.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And we're having an event tonight in the Social Sciences room at room 206, Social Sciences building, room 206. 7:30 p.m. Please come and join us tonight, and we'll be talking more. This will be our last question. The gentleman behind you. Go ahead, Mikey.
Oh, I was just going to say, you're the first person to come up and agree with one of these statements, and you're beautiful and amazing.
Yeah.
Hello.
It doesn't matter. But to her point about puberty blockers, we've known for a long time before this became a political issue because they do use puberty blockers for precocious puberty, which is a thing that happens. We've known that they have side effects. They do. And if you go on puberty blockers and then you choose to transition, you go on cross-sex hormones, you will be sterile. So that's what we're doing to children. So puberty blockers are not reversible. It's not just pausing puberty, and then you can decide. If you choose then to go on a cross-sex hormone, you will be sterile as a child. So she brought up that point. I just wanted to elaborate on it.
The gentleman back there is saying no one cares, which would be more believable if there weren't 200 people standing around listening. But go ahead.
So first off, I guess to establish a main basis. You guys are to establish like a basis, let's say, of what you guys believe in, correct? Not correct, but you guys are pro-life, is that correct?
Okay, good question. So what we are, because we haven't had really a chance to say it, we're from the WalkAway campaign, the WalkAway movement. We are the largest national movement of former Democrats walking away from the Democratic Party. We're former liberals, leftists who've walked away from the political left. So one thing that we say about WalkAway, we don't prescribe it as a specific ideology. We're not necessarily pro-Republican or pro-Trump or anything else. We are pro-free speech. We're pro doing your own homework, doing your own research. So I'm sure we all have very contrasting opinions about hot-button issues like abortion.
Okay, well, my main question was philosophically, what's better, if she spits or if she swallows?
I mean, we're the wrong guys to ask what she does, so I wouldn't know.
In all seriousness, I think that your question isn't just, but you hear this point a lot that somehow a sperm is equivocal to a fetus or an embryo or a zygote. It's not. You were never a sperm. No one here was ever a sperm, but you all were zygotes, you were embryos, you were fetuses. All of the DNA that you will ever need in life, it happens at fertilization, okay? So a sperm cell is necessary for life, but it's only one part of it. You came into existence when your father's sperm met your mother's egg. So I get that we're kind of joking here, but it is something that happens in debate, and they're not equivocal. Human life begins at fertilization when a whole, individuated, genetically distinct, living human organism is formed.
All right. I guess second question. Oh.
That was a bag dropper, Natalie.
Yeah. Sure, whatever. All right then.
It's okay to admit you've been licked.
No, I'm just trying to fuck around, bitches.
Go ahead. Thank you. All right, thank you guys so much for coming out today. At 7:30 tonight in the Social Sciences Building, room 206, we'll be doing our presentation. We walked away from the left. Why you should too. And we want you to bring all this great energy tonight and come and see us at 7:30. Thank you, UCI.